Thank you so much, Sierra. Before we get started, I'd like everybody, wherever you are, to just take a deep breath. Just breathe in once and then out. And I do that because we are in the last day of GLR week. And I just want to appreciate all of you who've been with us, listening, learning, and engaging with all of our sessions. And so that deep breath is especially for my colleagues here. It's been a fantastic week. So thank you to all of you. It will truly take all of us and then some to make a difference in what we're experiencing with learning recovery. And we all know that. We're all passionate about children. We're all passionate about families. And that's why we're here today. If you could advance the slide, please, Sierra. Thank you. So over the next 90 minutes, we will take the focus on the gaps deep into our CGLR communities, where the work is happening on the ground. So that deep breath is for my colleagues that are joining us on the panel as well. We've designed this session to use breakout rooms to be able to cover more territory, more strategies, and go coast to coast with these efforts. Before we get into the Zoom breakout room shuffle, I'd like all of you to hear just a snippet of the topics in the rooms so that you're able to mindfully choose which conversation you would like to join. And you do see that we will be using 3 breakout rooms, 3 topics. So it's at this time that I'd like to pitch it over to my colleague, Ron Fairchild, who will be sharing just a snippet of what's going to be going on in room 1, the high dosage tutoring room. And Sierra, thank you for advancing that slide. All right, go ahead, Ron.
Well, thank you, Malai. It is such a pleasure to be with all of you today. And I have the great pleasure of standing in for a colleague, Jenny Atkinson, who was going to be the moderator of our high dosage tutoring session, but unfortunately she is sick and unable to join us today. So you've got me as a backup. I am thrilled that we're going to be talking about high dosage tutoring today. It's something that we've had a whole series of webinars focused on over the past few years. We understand and know, based on this theme that we selected for GLR week, focusing on the gaps, that high dosage tutoring is one of the best ways to close gaps. We're going to be talking about that with friends in Mississippi and in Missouri who've got some well-developed models and strategies for doing that. And I think we're going to come away with an increasingly strong sense of conviction about the fact that if we know kids need high dosage tutoring to catch up, to keep up, and to move ahead, it is a moral imperative that is something we need to figure out how to deliver well, and deliver at scale. So I'm excited about the insights that will generate. I think it's my role and responsibility now to pitch it over to room 2. Not that we're competing about any of this stuff, but I'll pitch it over to Cecilia Leong at Attendance Works to tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening in room 2, just in case you might be interested in going there instead of joining us in room 1. Cecilia.
Thank you, Ron. And much as I would like to join you in room 1, I think I better stay in room 2. Room 2, we will be talking about school attendance. And from the very beginning of the campaign for grade level reading, we've recognized that kids being in class or present for any of the opportunities that the many communities have created to accelerate reading proficiency is critical. And the gaps existed pre-pandemic, and they've only widened since, nearly doubling chronic absence rates nationwide. And so one of the things that is so wonderful and hopeful about the campaign is that we don't accept this high level of chronic absence as the new status quo. I really hope you will join us. Ron, no disrespect, but I really hope you will join us to hear from our colleagues in the greater Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania and Yuma, Arizona, where they're going to share. This is not something that's an unsolvable problem. They are actually making a difference. They'll be sharing strategies that work, and not only lowering chronic absence overall, but doing some of that gap closing that we're so concerned about as a campaign. So with that, I will turn back to Malai to talk about what will be happening in room 3.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Room 3, our room We'll cover the many ways in which cross-sector organizations are pulling together with resources for families and then applying them to meet families where they are using that approach. And so you see a diverse panel here that represents not only United Ways, but also partners with United Ways, college, which is the education sector, and Catherine, who is part of the county. So she is actually public sector. So I really am proud of this diverse group that will be in room 3. Things that we will discuss very specifically, noting language as a pathway to literacy with that early childhood language development component, eyeglasses, being able to see, eye exams, addressing vision as a barrier to fully engaging school, reaching families and caregivers where they live through text messaging, such as Bright by Text, and also the many resources that families do receive from our community partners. Providing them those resources is what we will share. So this is coast to coast as well, this room, going from Georgia to California, and I hope to see you in room 3. So let's go to the next slide.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I am really excited about our panelists and the conversation that we have today that I get to help moderate. We're going to hear from folks in Mississippi, both at the state level and within Tupelo and Lee counties in Mississippi, as well as a team of folks from St. Louis, Missouri, who've been doing some great work in high dosage tutoring, and specifically, I think has some implications for all of us to think about how we scale up and invest more in high dosage tutoring. This is a strategy that has emerged, I think, in the wake of the pandemic in recent years as a particularly promising approach to closing gaps for low-income kids and marginalized kids and families across the country. And we are starting to see more and more communities investing more energy, momentum, and collective power in high dosage tutoring. That certainly got a boost when the President of the United States of America mentioned high dosage tutoring in the State of the Union address back in March, and linked it directly to summer learning as a strategy for ensuring that every child reads proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. I've mentioned earlier, we've done a bunch of webinars on this topic, and those webinars, along with the work that we've done to listen and learn from and with communities all across this network, have caused us to focus and hone in on 2 particular states today, Mississippi and Missouri, where we see models emerging for how organizations might work together to build and grow high dosage tutoring. So with that, I want to begin the conversation today by giving Alyssa and Shelley an opportunity to talk a little bit about what they've done with Mission Acceleration, both statewide in Mississippi, as well as a deeper dive in El Centro and the model that is at work in Tupelo and Lee County. So we'll hear from Alyssa and Shelley first. We'll have some time for a little bit of Q&A. They have some slides to share. And then we will go to Lisa, Renata, and Caroline, who are part of the campaign in St. Louis, Missouri. And we'll hear from them about what they're doing, some of their challenges, some of their successes, and really give you an opportunity to ask questions, to learn more, to dig a little bit deeper into how to do this work and expand opportunities for high dosage tutoring. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Alyssa and Shelley. They have some slides they want to share, and then we'll engage in a little bit of conversation. And I would encourage you, please post questions that you have in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. Evan will be monitoring that with me. And then we'll have opportunity to come off of mute and ask some questions as we go. So first up, Mississippi, take it away.
Thanks, Ron. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Hobart, and I serve as the director of the Mississippi Campaign for Grade Level Reading here in the great state of Mississippi. I am kind of wearing a different hat today. I am talking about Mission Acceleration, which is our high dosage tutoring program that came out of the pandemic. So I'll kind of give a broad overview first. There's extra information on the slides than what I'll necessarily talk about. So just giving you a heads up, and our website is linked at the end too. So I know there will be more questions than I can answer during our time together. So next slide, please. Thanks. So just a little bit of a background. So since we're talking about focusing on the gaps, obviously we all know high dosage tutoring really came to light out of the pandemic when it came to thinking about how can we slow and reverse the learning loss. So this program initially has been targeted in our Mississippi campaign for grade level reading communities, and we partner with them ultimately to improve literacy outcomes for all students. It started in 2021, again, as a direct result of the pandemic. This model and program is actually housed here at the University of Mississippi within our School of Education within our Center for Excellence in Literacy Instruction. I know that can get a little confusing, so happy to clarify that later. So just also transparency, we are not a full statewide program. It's really just an opportunity that we present to our campaign communities. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. So next slide. So we have two models here currently, and I think this has been a great result of what we've learned from the very beginning. So we piloted, their initial pilot phase was June of 2021 through September of 2022. And after we saw those promising results, we've kind of been able to, again, we're always learning, always growing, and there are pains that come from that, but we're thankful for the lessons we've learned. So we now have two different models of mission acceleration. One is what we call AmeriCorps Mississippi, or ACMS. And so that is where our staff here at Sealy, we do the finding partner sites, recruiting local college students, training all of them, and providing that ongoing coaching and support we call our tutors academic guides. So if you see AGs, that's what we mean. They're our tutors or our academic guides. And so we partner with school districts and community partners. They tutor kindergarten through fifth grade students. And again, we're utilizing local college students to provide this tutoring. On the other hand, our other model is VGF, or Volunteer Generation Fund. This has been a really, really fun model for us with its own unique set of challenges. But what that model does is we actually partner with school districts, and we utilize their high school students that are in CTE programs, like educator prep courses. So high schoolers that are thinking about becoming educators. So as part of their coursework, they serve as an academic guide, and they serve elementary students in their local school district, which is kind of cool, with the ultimate goal of hopefully creating a community pipeline of tutors that you'll have over time. So next slide. So within our program, we follow the MPSS standard key program components, and I'll go into that in more detail on the next slide. So with dosage, we try to get, again, this is what our goal always is. You'll hear lots about our challenges too, but our dosage ideally for high dosage is we want 40 to 60 minute sessions, 3 to 4 days per week. We do require our partners to ensure we can provide 3 hours of tutoring per week. Our curriculum is Voyager Passport, which is evidence-based. All of our AGs are trained in it. It is a scripted intervention curriculum. And again, continuing to provide lots of training on that and continual coaching. We train our volunteers. That's been a big learning curve for us. We've continued to tweak our training from the feedback we received from AGs, partner sites. Also keeping in mind, right, we're using college students and high school students, so we don't expect perfection, but also it's been really promising and cool to see that you can train high school and college students to be effective tutors, which is really exciting. We don't exceed 4-to-1 in ratios. We have consistent and explicit instructional routines along with assessments that we administer. We work with our partner sites to make sure that there's a good location where tutors can meet consistently with their students in a quiet location. Students are grouped strategically. They also have the same tutor the whole time. So they don't see different tutors for each session. And that's been really beneficial. So I see a question in the chat about when tutoring occurs. So it's a combination depending on the partner site. So some partner sites are after school, are our VGF model where we're using the high school students as the academic guides is just during the school day. You're beating me to my questions, but we use STAR as our assessment. So our kindergartners use STAR early literacy and then also STAR reading as they get older. So here's just a picture of our curriculum, Void Your Passport. So it's by grade level. Next slide. So here's our data. This is what everybody wants to see, right? This is where the rubber meets the road. So this is our spring 2023 data across all of our sites. We are still waiting for our 2024 report, so I can share 2023 with you. But across 9 sites and 6 different communities, between 30 to 70 minutes of tutoring a day, 3 times per week. On average, scholars experience 4 months of reading growth just during that 10-week period during that spring semester. Noting that, especially for our college students, that's sometimes why the number of weeks per semester might vary, thinking about their college schedule and how that matches up with school schedules. I know that's a question we get a lot, but spring tends to be our longer semester because we've already started. But that was pretty exciting to see, had over 170 students and 67 academic guides. And so that's been really exciting to see. So next slide. I'm going to pass it off to Shelly at El Centro, and she'll share a little bit more about a specific partner site and community experience. So Shelly.
Thanks, Alyssa. Hey everyone, I'm Shelly Brooks with I'm the community lead for Tupelo Lee County, which is an initiative of United Way of Northeast Mississippi. And we are so happy to be a part of Mission Acceleration. El Centro, the partner site that I'm going to tell you about today, was one of the actually first sites when Mission Acceleration was started back in 2021. El Centro was an advantage for us because it was one of the agencies that was already served by United Way of Northeast Mississippi, and the director was actually already a part of our coalition. So it was a smooth start. Next slide. This is just a picture of the last group. I'm going to begin by giving a short overview of El Centro, and then I'll share pictures so you can kind of get a better idea of what this looks like on a daily basis. And we are an after-school program. The next slide just shows the mission and the vision of El Centro. They work not only with children, but with families to integrate into the community through education, training, services that meet the individual needs of the families. Next slide. That shows the different programs. You see that we have the after-school program for K-12 help with homework. They also have certified teachers from the school district, and many of these students attend the schools where these teachers are employed. And very important point, these programs are open to everyone, not just the Hispanic community. It's been around a while. El Centro has been with us in our community since 2006, and we're very happy to have them there. They have a wonderful, next slide, they have a wonderful resource center. They have help with gaining access to social services. They have bilingual assistance to help. They have information on parenting, child development, nutrition, you name it. The next picture just shows a Saturday workshop for adults. And as you can see from the pictures, it is well attended, usually no seats left. And the next slide shows the tutoring. And then on slide 18, that shows our program, the Mission Acceleration. These are actually pictures from our last semester. And like I said, it began in 2021, so we're right at home. Our enrollment varies. It can go anywhere from 17 to 34 students. We have used college students, and the college campuses in our community enroll mainly commuter students, so recruitment can be challenging. So there have been some semesters where we've used area teachers and volunteers when we were short of college students. And you can just go through the slides of the pictures. Again, the relationship with El Centro was key in the success of a smooth start. Also, the relationship with the school district, the relationship between El Centro and the school district and the coalition and the school district. The school district actually donated Chromebooks the first year before El Centro had their computer labs. Now they have 2 very nice computer labs. On a side note, the school district partners with El Centro to send district employees to help them with registration. So the relationship there is really important. Then I'm going to share the data. This is data first on slide 26. That's okay. This was for fall of 2022. This is where we had, here we go, 2 days a week, 90 minutes a day. That's what works best. They only have El Centro tutoring 2 days a week. So we extended that period. And we did this for 6 weeks, and it was 2 months of reading growth. Now, in the fall, there are less weeks due to fall break, Christmas holidays, and exam schedules for the college students. If you go to the next slide, this is spring 2023, and you can see we have 17 scholars, 4 academic guides, 2 days a week again, 90 minutes, 6 months of reading growth, 10-week period. So we're very proud of that. So it varies. The last thing I'm going to share is a statement from our director. And this quote is something that the director states each semester. She talks about how she has to turn away students due to us meeting capacity. And that's due to space or the number of academic guides. And then, of course, she highlights the small group setting and the activities make it fun for the children. Again, we are so proud to be a part of Mission Acceleration and be able to serve the El Centro, and we hope to continue to serve them many more semesters. Thank you. Back to Alyssa.
Thanks, Shelley. Yeah, so El Centro has been a really great partner for us since they've been a part of it since the beginning. And I think, again, they've provided a lot of grace, and we've been able to learn from each other about how we can continue to improve our model. And also being able to have that consistent partner site is really great too, because then we actually have the chance to improve upon our model. And again, I think just the students and the AGs there have all had really positive experiences. Obviously, the growth in reading, but also just that partnership, that role model, and it's such a great partner site for us. So we enjoy working with El Centro. And yeah, I think that's it. So I think we're open for some questions now.
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa and Shelley. What a fantastic overview of that model. I also wanted to say how much I appreciate the questions in the chat and the link that Alyssa just shared to their playbook, chock full of great resources. I want to pick up on a couple of the questions that were in the chat, and then a couple that I had. One thing you didn't talk too much about is how you fund all of this. So say we want to do it, and we want to do it bigger and at scale. How do you manage to find investors and funding to do this work?
So the funding for Mission Acceleration here in Mississippi, so we're the proud recipient of funding through both AmeriCorps Volunteer Generation Fund and Volunteer Mississippi. So that is how we're funded. Something I should have included for our college students who are doing the tutoring, they also qualify as minimum time AmeriCorps members. So they receive a Siegel Education Award after they complete 300 hours of service at the end of the year. That's a huge recruitment tool for us.
Yeah, and that funding from AmeriCorps is available across state lines to other states, and it's also a strategy for scaling. I mean, getting volunteers and getting them plugged into AmeriCorps is definitely a scaling strategy. Shelley, did you want to add to that about the funding? No, I saw you come off mute.
our funding comes straight from them.
Yeah. How have you guys navigated the difference between one-on-one tutoring, high dosage tutoring, and small group? And then tied to that, where and when the tutoring happens often has a big impact on whether and to what extent the kids show up and engage. Can you reflect on that? Some differences between doing it during the school day, after school, on site at the school, or at different locations?
Yeah, I'll do my best. So we do not do one-on-one tutoring. We've always done small group. That's kind of been part of our model from the beginning. And just a way for us to make sure that we can work with more students. Again, we try not to exceed that 4 students to 1 academic guide, and particularly with our youngest students. So what I'll also say, Ron, is we spend a lot of our time, I would say primarily tutoring kindergarten through about 3rd grade. We do get some of those 4th and 5th graders, but across most of our sites, the bulk of our students tend to be that kindergarten through 3rd grade. And then when it comes to tutoring during the day or after school, I think what we know just from the research with high dosage tutoring, it's actually most effective when it's during the school day. But I would also say that's one of our greatest challenges, right? Especially that's why we were able to do that BGF model, and being able to utilize high school CTE students made it a little easier and enticing to some of our partners to actually be able to provide that real life teaching experience for their high school students to figure out, hey, I love this. I definitely want to do this. Or, maybe this isn't what I want to do before they get to college. And even just to make them aware of, wow, this is really important. And maybe this isn't for me, but this is something I'm really passionate about and want to make sure that in the future, as an informed citizen, I'm paying attention to education.
Yeah, what I love about that is you're delivering high quality, high dosage tutoring, but at the same time, you're building your educator pipeline. You're also providing high quality youth development and mentoring experiences for older youth. And sometimes we struggle as we're focused on younger kids and early school success. What is our solution for older kids? That you're checking a lot of boxes with that strategy.
Yeah. And then for most of our college students, it's a mix. It just depends on the partner site. So for across a lot of this past year, especially, we were able to tutor during the school day. Again, scheduling is a challenge, right? Both with college schedules, school schedules, finding space in a school building. I think I would love to hear from other people how they work through that challenge with high dosage tutoring, because at the same time, as a former educator, and Shelley has been too, if you're going to let people in your building and spend time with your students, there's a trust factor there. And even with the data, like sometimes that's just hard, right?
Yeah.
And so that continues to be something we continue to tweak and learn from. So for our college students, there's a mix of after school program sites and or during the school day, just kind of depends.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Alyssa. Questions in the chat about choosing the curriculum, how you prioritize literacy versus math, or do you do both?
So when we chose the curriculum, the Mississippi Department of Education provides a list of approved intervention curriculums. And so when we first started the program, Voyager Passport was one of the ones that was on the list. I was not a part of that process at the time, but it was scripted and probably one of the easier ones to implement if you're trying to utilize high school students and or college students to use the curriculum as it's designed and be able to do it successfully. So we chose Voyager Passport. We only focus on literacy, so we don't do math interventions. And then what was the other question? I'm trying to attendance
only
issues.
literacy. Yeah, and it was basically a question about the curriculum, which I think you answered.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to go to Shelley. A question about, success kind of covers its tracks sometimes. And I know you've had a lot of success at El Centro, but I wondered about some of the challenging things you've had to overcome with that particular program model, and how to translate a big state initiative like Mission Acceleration into a local community. Maybe there's some lessons learned there as well that you might be willing to share.
Sure. As I mentioned, obtaining academic guides is because of our college campuses here. Our commuters is a large challenge, and the state people, Alyssa and her group, have really helped us with recruitment, helping us to reach out to those universities and community colleges. We've done huge social media campaigns for recruitment. They have helped us with that. We also, because we're part of United Way of Northeast Mississippi, we have partner agencies, so we've gotten them on board to help us recruit and tell their family members and tell their people they go to church with or socialize with, getting the word out. Our coalition is very active with that. So that has been a challenge for us. I know it's not been a challenge for everyone here in Mississippi, especially in Oxford, Starkville, places like that have the larger universities where students are on campus. Attendance varies. Sometimes that could be a issue.
Yeah.
Our director is so hands-on that she meets individually with those families and usually gets it under control. Many of the El Centro students have been with us. They'll start in kindergarten and they just go on up. So those families are okay. It's usually the new families that come in, and especially the summer months, as you would think, because of vacations and things like that. So those two things have been the most challenging for us.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley. And I think that speaks to the intersectionality of attendance, high dosage tutoring, and community support that all three of these breakout rooms are dealing with. I'm curious, there's a question in the chat about how you train your academic guides or your college student volunteers who are coming in to support. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like, that training, and then your efforts to retain them. Once you have them, like how do you keep them? Those two things, and I suspect they may be related.
Yes, so the training piece of our academic guides has probably been, I would say, one of the biggest lessons we've learned, because what our training looks like now is not what it looked like from the very beginning. And I think that's based off of being able to receive that feedback from them and really think about, okay, how can we better support you? So I'll speak to this last year because I got to train most of our academic guides across the state, actually. But we have an overview or orientation of what is mission acceleration. And actually, I'm going to go back a step. When they apply to become an academic guide, there's an interview. We go through it. They have to apply, go through that process. They also have to go through a background check to be an AmeriCorps member. And then once they're officially enrolled, then we start our training, if that makes sense. So overview of the program, there's a science of reading training. Again, you can't do everything. We're talking about high school and college students here. So we're not expecting perfection. But we do science of reading. We do a curriculum training that's been really helpful, where we actually get to practice teaching lessons to each other, knowing why is it set up the way it is? How do I use this? We also provide a session on how to manage small groups, because, some of these people have never worked with small kids. So we got to talk about that. Who do I go to? Is this a problem that's worth addressing or not? And then we also provide training on how to use our assessment protocols.
Wonderful. Well, please join me in thanking Shelley and Alyssa for that great overview and some of the Q&A. Thank you. And we are going to transition at this point to hear a little bit more about Turn the Page STL and the team assembled from St. Louis, Lisa, Renata, and Caroline. One thing I want to say about the work in St. Louis that stands out to me is this notion of the tutoring collaborative, where organizations are working together to align, connect, make sure that tutoring, that we've got that well-connected and well-aligned across the community, not just individual isolated tutoring programs, but a true collaborative strategy. And I know that Lisa Greening, as executive director of Turn the Page STL, has played a big role in that. And I'm delighted to turn it over to her for a little bit of background and context setting for the work in St. Louis. Lisa, take it away.
Thank you, Ron. What a week it's been. I will start out by saying St. Louis, Missouri is quite behind what is happening in Mississippi. And I just a big shout out to the great work in reading proficiency rates in Mississippi. And it's just not one group. It came together so much with the universities there and with a funding community. And so what Alyssa does is where we dream to go. I joked yesterday that we have in Missouri, there are 2 chapters of the campaign for grade level reading. Unlike in Mississippi, I don't know, Alyssa, how many do you?
We have 11 recognized communities
11.
right
So we have 2. We have one in St. Louis and one in Kansas City. But the goal is you're going to see Turn the Page Missouri soon, just like the Mississippi campaign for grade level reading, because we really need to take this work that we're learning both in Kansas City and in St. Louis across the state. So a year ago, it was quite clear from all of the research that was coming out from the campaign from grade level reading to local initiatives that we were in crisis here in St. Louis. In our 7 lowest performing school districts, only 22% of the kids in 3rd grade passed the reading proficiency exam. That's up from back in 2019, that was 14%. So we're moving in the right direction, but we are still extraordinarily below in compared to the rest of the nation in these 7 lowest performing school districts. And so we've been doing a lot of work as the campaign for grade level reading, but a year ago, with the research, it became very clear that high impact tutoring works. And Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona said, and I've urged our nation's schools to provide every student who is struggling with extended access to an effective tutor. That is our mantra, every student. We also really were very clearly informed that what do families with wealth do if their child is not reading proficiently? They pay for a tutor. And that is prevalent throughout St. Louis and throughout the country. So if you can't afford a tutor, those inequities grow and grow and grow. And so how do we effectively make sure each child has a tutor that needs a tutor? Next slide. So I started to look at who were all of the organizations here in St. Louis that were providing free tutoring services to children and families. We were also looking at adult tutoring, multi-generational literacy in low-income communities here in St. Louis. We weren't looking at varsity tutors, for example, because that is a cost. We were looking at those that provide tutoring, and we convened a team, and this was just a year ago, and started to meet monthly. You can read the names of some of them are very small, and some of them are very large. I am thrilled that after I speak, that Renata with Smart Kids Inc. will be speaking, a smaller tutoring organization here in St. Louis, and then Caroline with the YMCA, a much larger tutoring organization here in St. Louis. But we decided we would meet monthly. So next slide. What did we do? First steps. Well, we had to get to know each other. Many knew each other, but how are we working together? So we convened these virtual monthly meetings. We started sharing research of best practices that we were getting nationwide, and we were reading these things together and sharing a Google folder and just opening up the conversation. I mean, the fiefdoms are real. You know, how do you work with if you're getting funding from an organization, how do you work with another organization that's also getting funding, and how can you be open and trusting and honest with your program, best what's working and what's not working? And I really think we did it. We really came together on this, and it was just a lot of trust. We also, somebody in the chat said free training. One of our key partners is University of Missouri St. Louis and their School of Education. They do provide tutors, students that are in their School of Education before they go to student teaching. They tutor in the St. Louis public schools, and through their funding mechanisms was able to provide U-Fly training. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that. University of Florida's Literacy Institute training based on the science of reading to all of our tutoring organizations. Plus a lot of teachers joined in too. It was 2 Saturdays we spent in February. And again, they're going to be offering that for free virtually in September. So next, so we kind of, how do you get, what's best practices? What should training look like for our tutors? We set a vision that all students K through 4th grade who are not reading proficiently have access to a high impact tutor in the St. Louis community, focusing on our 7 lowest performing school districts. And then we said, what is the supply and demand of tutoring in the St. Louis region? We heard a horror story of a big funder coming in and providing paying for high impact tutoring for a school district that was really struggling, and that school district couldn't take part in that tutoring because they didn't have the ability to absorb those tutors into their daily schedules. I know that was a question on here too, about, and maybe Alyssa can answer that better. I know Caroline can too, about how you navigate with teachers and schools to provide this during the school tutoring time. So I signed the contract actually yesterday with Bellwether, which is to do a tutoring, a consulting firm to understand the landscape of supply and demand, not only the supply, but then also the demand from the schools. How can we help schools absorb high impact tutors for children that we know works? We're also in the process, back one real quick. We're also in the process of setting benchmarks for quality as a group. What is quality? Our funding community is asking for that. And we are we're running this tightrope because one, we want to increase tutoring, but Caroline will tell you that her biggest fear was we don't have enough tutors to meet this. So we're having to look at the supply and also how do we recruit more. So next slide. So recruiting tutors. One of the things that we're doing, and I know Ron's heard about this documentary called Sentenced. I hope I'm making him laugh by him hearing this documentary.
Yeah,
but
I have heard something about it over the last couple of years, Lisa. Yes.
Sorry.
That's great.
So on September 8th, and you guys should check this out because grade level reading communities across the country are going to be airing. We're doing it in St. Louis at a cinema. It's actually going to be a private event because we can only hold 120 people. But what is going to happen is everybody is going to watch this documentary. It's very powerful. And I know Ron can talk about it more about the issues of illiteracy in our country. But at the end of the documentary, there will be a QR code. So you can go on the QR code, put in your zip code, and it can tell you where you can become a tutor. Also, the goal here in St. Louis is then the people we're inviting, we want them then to take that documentary and show it to their stakeholders. So we're inviting clergy, we're inviting community leaders, so that we can start building a tutoring collaborative. We're also working with local universities. I saw that Laura Lytle is on this with with the YMCA at Washington University, they have work study students. And so I find the work study students to be really valuable way of moving forward. Our federal government has even talked about increasing money for work study students on campuses. So what does that look like at Washington University? What does that look like at Webster University? What does that look like at UMSL? And we've been in talks with the National Partnership for Student Success about work study students tutoring. And as Alyssa was talking about AmeriCorps, St. Louis does not have an AmeriCorps group. It used to, about 15 years ago, embedded tutors in our St. Louis public schools. We no longer have that. In Kansas City, they have Literacy Lab, which is AmeriCorps tutors. And so we're looking at that model of bringing it across the state because we know that that model works well. And last but not least, next slide. I'm just over the moon about this tutoring collaborative. We have so many great organizations here in St. Louis. We did not need to reinvent tutoring organizations. We did not need to create them. We needed to align them. And just to tell you this story, and Caroline can tell it, it's her story, but the St. Louis Public Library is on our team, and they had reading buddies, but they didn't have tutoring. Big difference between a reading buddy and a tutor. And so now the St. Louis Public Library is partnering with the YMCA to figure out how they can extend tutoring at the library. I also think that collaboratives work well because St. Louisans need a choice. Sometimes it has to be after school. Sometimes it has to be during the school. Sometimes it can be a combination of in-person or virtual tutor. We've got technology out there that can help with tutoring. So it really keeps it open up. And now we're just seeking money. So if anybody has an idea about that, I'm just kidding. We're on the to try to bolster and continue to recruit tutors and work with school districts to ensure every child has a high impact tutor who needs one.
Well,
And that
you,
is it.
That's great. Do you want to kick it over to Caroline?
Yeah, Caroline Mitchell.
Hi, thank you for having
Go
me
for
here
it.
today. I'm really glad that we do have the tutoring collaborative as well. The YMCA has provided one-on-one tutoring for almost 35 years. Each year we tutor about 150 people, which feels like a lot when you're recruiting all the tutors, but is a drop in the bucket when you're looking at the need. And so it's been great to be able to refer people to other organizations, to recruit collaboratively for volunteers. So just a little bit about our program. So we recruit volunteers who we train and we match them one-on-one for a period of a year. So they meet once a week for an hour, but they meet for 12 months. We tutor about 100 children and 50 adults each year. I am going to foreshadow too and say I am at a Y on a Thursday during camp. So I'm in the quietest room at the Y, but hopefully it stays somewhat quiet here.
No worries. I think everybody understands that.
Thank you. We have an average of 2 grade levels growth that people experience in our programs each year that they're in there. And we do have options for in-person and virtual. Most of our tutoring takes place in out of school time, but some of it does happen with the school partners. That's one of the advantages of being one-on-one is we can be very flexible when we can match people up effectively. And I think that's really what this slide is about is the YMCA is very focused on relationships. We know when people come to our Ys, they're usually doing something for the first time. So they may be learning to swim, they may be starting a new fitness routine, it might be their first job, they might be a new parent, but people come to the Y the first time to do something new and often uncomfortable. And so we think it's really important that everybody is trained and supported in how to provide instruction. But then it's also that relationship part that takes things to that next level. And so I'm just going to use the example because I am at the Y of a personal training model. So all of the personal trainers at your YMCAs are highly trained, certified people who know everything about fitness, but thinking about yourself and what you want to do and where you are and your fitness goals. Probably not the fitness trainer for me is not a 23-year-old marathon runner. That might be the fitness trainer for you, right? And so that relationship of who is that person, what is their style, where are they is really important too. So you see some of our tutors in the pictures. Cindy, the one who's in the box, is the most extravagant and wonderful. She totally gets into a story. And so if you have a kid who is struggling to pay attention, Cindy's amazing. It's hard not to pay attention to Cindy. Lanza and the two high school students he tutored, they really had very similar goals and what they found interesting and what they wanted for the community. And then I love Larry and Les. They seem so much like an unlikely pair, but they just are amazing, like lifelong friends that came from that tutoring relationship. So next slide. And so I think, I don't know, okay. Yeah, and I think the other side of this is the environment in which you're trying to do something new is really important. So we do try and embed different reading into different parts of our YMCA. We also highlight our partnerships. So as Lisa mentioned, the library is a partner. So when you come sign up for camp, we've had book fairs, or when you can get your library card. And so we try and make that environment, just like you're not going to see a vending machine with candy bars in there while you're trying to lose weight. When you're trying to get a new reading habit, we want that environment to lift up reading and be supportive of reading. Our tutors are also really great in that behavior change journey about celebrating small successes. So I know Jean made it's your 100th day of tutoring cake for all of her students and really got people in that celebration. So what are the things that people can celebrate along the way that really support that behavior? And I love this picture too, because London, who is the older girl you see reading, she got tutoring from us when she was in first grade, and now you see her in second grade volunteering in our Child Watch because already she doesn't want other kids to struggle the way that she did. And so I think that's a really powerful thing of when somebody gets the help that they need, wanting to give back and wanting to share that with others. So yeah, and there's the cake on the 100th day of tutoring. The library normally didn't allow food, but they were all in on what we were doing and were part of that relationship by the time they got to their 100th tutoring session. So I'm going to kick it over to Renata to talk about Smart Kids Inc. and the different model that they use.
Oh, thank you so very much, Caroline. My name is Renata Chandler. I'm the Executive Director here at Smart Kids, Inc. First, I want to say it's a great pleasure to be here to collaborate with all you guys. And I love being a part of Turn the Page STL under our STL partnering with tutors and to find tutors for different groups and students. That's been a great pleasure to network with other people and to share ideas and to collaborate on new inventions for students to get tutoring. Next slide. We're a nonprofit that's been around tutoring for about 10 years. We are still a small organization, and we believe in a one-on-one environment for tutoring. A lot of our students have learning disabilities, and sometimes it's hard for them to navigate with other students. So we want them to feel they're most comfortable and be able to tutor with our students. We recruit students from universities and colleges who are in the Department of Education, and they're going to be tutors. So our program helps them to use our program as a stepping stone to see what it's going to be like in the real world where they have their own classrooms. These two students both came from UMSO, and we too have a collaboration with the St. Louis County Library in which we go in and tutor our students. We also have our own facility here in Bridgeton, Missouri. A lot of our students are rotating students where they come back year after year, which is great because we can show how much of an impact we've had with those students. Next slide, please. So these are some of our tutors that started with us back in 2013. And fun fact, these two students are now adults. So just to show how long we've been here, the one-on-one really works for our students because they can really use the tutors to their full advantage. And then when they have that aha moment, that's the best time for us because finally they get it. They can apply what we've taught them to their classroom and to their learning styles, and they're good to go. They receive 2 hours a week. This year, we're going to increase it to 5 hours a week. They normally get 1 hour a day with us. And so for the last 10 years, we've only been providing that. I'm sorry. Yes. So do tutors, and the question came, do tutors learn about different learning disabilities? Yes, that is a part of our orientation and our training. A lot of students that we serve, they do have some type of learning disability. That's why we like to provide one-on-one tutoring. So a lot of our students that we serve have either dyslexia or they have some type of learning disability. They either have an IEP or they have a 504 plan. And so we do work with those students to assist them with their everyday academic struggles. We only concentrate on reading comprehension and mathematics for kindergartners through 12th grade. Having the space at the library is great because they have a lot of individual rooms in which tutors can take their students in and they can tutor based off those two subjects. And not only do they get help with their homework help, but we help them to prepare for exams, quizzes, teaching them different learning strategies in order for them to take back with them to their school and apply to their everyday learning. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Well,
I think that's it, Renata.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
You want to share some closing thoughts?
Yes, I say we just, as a team collectively, we got to keep going. This will never stop. Teaching, learning will always be the number one core that kids need, especially if they need extra academic support. That's what we're all here for. And I think that if we got to keep going the race and keep passing the baton from generation to generation.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that encouragement and admonition, Renata, and I want to just open it up first by saying thank you to you and Lisa and Caroline. I also want to open it up for some questions about the model in St. Louis. There have been some questions in the chat. I think most of those have been tackled. One of the things I wanted to ask about was, a lot of us buy into the promise and the potential of collaborative or collective efforts, like what you're doing with the tutoring collaborative. And sometimes those efforts result in what we hope they would. And other times we kind of struggle sometimes with that. And I'm curious if you started to see evidence of the fact that there is a tutoring collaborative is helping programs and providers make perhaps different choices about where they're serving kids or what age group or what focus areas, or how are they starting to show signs that they're working differently because there's a collaborative in place, and maybe they're better handoffs from one program or provider to the next one in an effort to get the collective impact. Are you starting to see some evidence that's starting to take root? So share a little bit about that.
So I'm not a tutoring organization, right? I'm just the
Right.
chapter of the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. I'm the convener.
Yep.
And back in January, a woman who I just adore, Robin Boda, many of you who in St. Louis know her with Hope Education, she said in our STL Tutoring Collaborative meeting, we should all take science of reading training. Let's take UFly training so that we all can start incorporating science of reading instruction in our training for tutors. And I almost fell out of my chair. I really did. I was like, what? You were everyone's going to participate. And then the professor UMSL said, let's provide it. So I think what is happening is right now, everybody's getting on board with high impact. What does high impact look like? And how we're training our tutors regarding geographically how we are moving forward. That will probably start happening in September after we have this landscape analysis completed.
Yeah. but a common platform, a common set of training, key principles that everyone embraces across the collaborative is sort of a forerunner to that.
But everyone's different. Everyone's, some are after school, some during school, some once a week, some 3 times a week, some virtual, some not virtual. So, but I think choice is important for families. So, yeah, Caroline, jump in.
Yeah, I think I'm glad, Lisa said that, because I think there are some things that are foundational, right? And so it's exciting to do the training and to see what other people are using. Some people are incorporating that. Some people already had, curriculum that they kept. But it's great to be on that have that same shared knowledge. But I do think it's not a one size fits all, right? Like we know that in our schools, that when I say quality education, the video that plays in my head looks differently than the video that's playing in your head. And that doesn't mean that my video is wrong or your video is wrong. And so I think that's what's exciting about it is, sort of like I said with the physical training, once a week is challenging for some people when they're getting started, right? We know that 3 times a week can be more effective, but I did P90X where you do 90 minutes, 6 days a week. And I also quit doing P90X, right? And so we know that it's different for different people. And so I don't think, we want to say that there's a one size fits all. And so it's great to be able to refer people to Teach for America if that's the model they're looking for, and for people to be able to refer to us if that's what is a better fit. And now I see a bunch of hands.
A bunch of hands. And Caroline, I think you just articulated like a great leader of a collaborative that really understands power sharing, knows the difference between what you want to hold on to tightly and then what things you want to stay flexible on. Because there's certain things you want to keep folks together with a shared understanding of what you're trying to do and accomplish, but maybe the pathways to getting there, you might want to be flexible about those kinds of things. So tight and loose, what you want to keep, those things I think are really important. Amani, I see your hand up. I'm going to encourage you to come off mute and ask a question really quick, because I think we're short on time.
Thank you so much. I'll be really quick. I actually have 2 questions. One, we have a sizable and growing immigrant community here in Kansas City. We have been approached by outschool.com. I want to know if anybody has heard of them and what their experience is. They claim to have tutors from different countries that will help with reading. My second question is about the local investment community here in Kansas City. Is called Link. They dominate the after school space. Are they helping turn the page with reading literacy?
Okay, so
I wish we had Link in St. Louis, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I've never heard of them.
A lot about Link. I will put in the chat, Amani, Kristen Druggy with Turn the Page Casey. I'll put her information in the chat. I would reach out to her regarding this tutoring organization. She'll know the entire landscape, what's happening in Kansas City.
She's a close friend of mine. I already know her.
All right, then I won't worry about it.
Last week.
Ask her. I bet she would know, and if she doesn't know, she would know who to ask.
She doesn't know. That's why I'm asking the question.
Oh.
So
Alyssa, have you heard of them?
Anyone on this call heard of OutSchool or had any connection with OutSchool?
No.
Okay. So that's something we will definitely follow up on and encourage others to follow up on. And as you do due diligence, your own due diligence on that organization, I would invite you and encourage you to share that with the rest of the group. I also just want to say a word about Link and about Kansas City. And Amani, I want to thank you for being on the call. I hope you saw at the very top of this webinar a tribute to Burt Berkeley. Burt was just an incredible advocate and champion of the campaign and of the cause of literacy and work to address poverty in Kansas City. He was one of the first people I met in Kansas City back in 2012 when we were starting the network, the Campaign for Grade Level Reading Network, and just He died at the age of 101. It's just such an inspiring example of someone whose life work was dedicated to this. And so I just want to just acknowledge that. And Evan, apparently she has worked her magic and has gotten us a bit of an extension, if you will, for this great dialogue and conversation. So let me turn it back over to folks who have questions in the chat, and any hands that might be raised, or folks who want to come off of mute. If not,
I want to talk about how do you keep a collaborative going?
yes.
I've only ever seen collaboratives work when you have a paid staff person that's leading it. So that would be me in this case. I don't expect, Caroline and Renata have programs to run. I do not expect, so it's hard to have a collaborative without a paid staff person, in my opinion. Did that answer that question?
So it takes broad community leadership, but also focused management on the part of a person who can serve as the lead for that collaborative or that collective or coalition-led work. And I think we've seen that in campaign communities all across the country. You got to have that person who feels like this is their primary responsibility, and can make that a priority, not an afterthought, but a core part of what their job actually entails.
Hey, Ron, do we have a grade level reading community in Northern Virginia?
In Northern Virginia and Alexandria, I don't believe we have an active campaign in Alexandria. And Rachel's question in the chat, a loose collaborative of various literacy organizations. There are lots of communities like that, and I think a real opportunity to bring those organizations together with a more focused campaign. So Rachel, I'd be delighted to talk with you more about that. And more conversation about OutSchool. I had a question just to go back to the funding piece. Making the case for investment in this kind of collaborative approach to high dosage tutoring, what are some of the keys for private and public sector investment and funding, securing that not just on a time limited basis, but in more of an ongoing sustainable support for this in partnership with districts?
In Missouri, we are just now seeing, I'm sure in Mississippi it's been seeing money for tutoring at statewide. So I would say at this point, and I would look into what the state of Missouri or your state is doing in regards to money for high impact tutoring. And then in St. Louis, we're really setting benchmarks for what high quality tutoring is, and then we will be presenting that to our private funding community here in St. Louis.
Okay. Other thoughts, ideas, suggestions on that? Questions from the group? Just giving folks a little bit more time. Well, would you all come off mute and also turn on your cameras and just join me in thanking our wonderful panelists today from Mississippi and Missouri? Come on, folks, say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was fabulous. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See, we can do this, we can do interaction. This is possible. Seeing smiles, that's great. It's wonderful.
Did we answer everybody's questions?
I think we got most everyone, unless if there were some that I missed or Evan missed. What about,
Communist-
the virtual training, is it available to everyone, not just limited, the UFLIs?
You fly?
Yeah, you fly,
I
sorry.
can, Ron, I can send you the flyer and you could forward it. I think it's virtual, so.
It's virtual, yeah.
So I would, and it's free. I know that that they said it's limited capacity, but I don't know how limited it could really be.
Okay.
So can I do that, Ron? And
Yeah, why don't you do that, and then we'll figure out a way to get it back out to folks.
Well, if you send it to Malai, Lisa, I'll add it into the follow-up.
Yeah,
Cool.
let's do that.
Everybody.
I'll
That's
send it
great.
to Malai right afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah, you're better to send it directly to Malai than me, I tell you.
It sounds right.
All right. Well, with that, I just want to say thank you for a great conversation today. We're going to go back into the main room for a few little wrap-up items. So hang in there with us, and we're going to head back over to the main room.
Yep, here we go. So I'm just going to repeat this one more time. Such a pleasure to be joined by Khushbu Jain and Angela Logan. I'll spare you the longer introduction. They'll have a lot more to say for themselves as we go along. Next slide. So we really are here to talk about chronic absence, which has such an impact on students and their reading proficiency. Next slide. So this is one of the big gaps that not only affects student attendance, but it affects everything else that students benefit from if they are in the classroom. So we've sounded the alarm on the crisis. We've seen chronic absence nearly doubling and disturbingly not coming down much in 22-23. So this is something that we really need to focus on in our campaign communities if we really want to move the needle on grade level reading and close those gaps that existed prior to the pandemic. So this is a little dated now, the 21-22 data. Some of you have more recent data from 22-23, but if you don't know what the chronic absence levels are in your particular community, this interactive map that Johns Hopkins created can be very helpful because it allows you to get a sense of how your community chronic absence levels look and how they compare to others in your state. So don't go off and play with the map right now, but this is a resource under an advocate. This is a helpful tool to have in your pocket. So this is why we are focused on chronic absenteeism. This is yet one of the research studies that show the impact of the literacy gaps that appear in kindergarten. And this is driven in many ways by the chronic absenteeism beginning at the very start of a child's entrance into our education system. So that red box, if you take a look, you can see the gap between students and their literacy levels begin in kindergarten, and it continues and persists. So if we focus in the kindergarten grades and get students in school more regularly, we can avert some of the things that we need to do in later grades to remediate the learning loss. So next slide. One of the things that's been really clear also, and Khushbu and Angela will talk more about it in their particular communities, chronic absence has risen, and part of it is that the reasons have changed. Some of the reasons are the same ones, but they're bigger. So chronic and acute illness, totally driving many absences now. But we're seeing greater levels of trauma as people and children have suffered loss over the course of the pandemic. And we're seeing more school refusal and aversion and anxiety about showing up to school. And the misconceptions about why school is important and why absences matter or don't matter are rising. So giving you a quick example, a lot of families, when they're polled, have said, well, no, absences aren't a problem because they're getting false signals that their kids are doing perfectly well. They miss 2, 3, 4 days a month. Their kids are still getting Bs. So why not take off, or why make it a big fuss when your child is perhaps not into going to school at the moment? So the reasons for absence have shifted a bit. And I think when Angela and Khushbu talk, you'll hear some of what's really shifting and what are the solutions and strategies for addressing those differing reasons. Next slide. So we've really focused a lot since the start of the pandemic and the end of it on these positive conditions for learning. What makes students want to come to school? What makes families make school a priority? And these are the positive conditions for learning that are not about attendance interventions. They're the reasons why students want to come to school. And if you think for even 30 seconds about your own experience as a student, some of us have to think back farther than others, but we come to school. Kids come to school when they feel physically and emotionally healthy and safe in the school building. They come because they feel a sense of belonging and connection, whether it's with a caring adult or with their friends or their peer group, and that they receive support. And they come because learning is exciting. There's academic challenge and engagement happening. There's play, there's fun, there's joy. That's why we come to school. And it's supported with these relationships where adults and students have the well-being and emotional competence to participate. And so those are the things that we're focused on, and just acknowledging that this has been a hard time for educators. People have experienced greater levels of stress and burnout than ever before. And we've seen the exit of people from the profession. So all these pieces really have to be restored in order for school to be a place where everyone wants to be. Next slide. So Attendance Works has always talked about this tiered system of supports and pushed for the building of those tier 1 universal school-wide interventions. And we'll be hearing about a few of those. And I would love to hear from all of you as well, what you're seeing that's really working. And on top of that, we have early intervention and, if needed, intensive interventions. So I've really seen over the years, people shifting away from waiting until you have accumulated 20%, 30%, 40% or more days missed and needing intensive intervention to a much more preventative early intervention approach. So, which is even more critical now, because we've said over and over, you can't case manage your way out. Not if you have 14.7 million students chronically absent. Even if you were able to hire every social worker in the world, not going to happen. Next slide. So just click through for me, Leah, please. I just want to conclude with this observation that students and families go to school when they have hope for a better future, when they have faith that the school will help their child succeed, when they have voice in decisions that affect them and their children, and they have access to the needed supports and services that remove the barriers to learning. I'll just tell you my own personal life experience as an immigrant child. My parents had every hope. My extended family had every hope for a better future by attending school. And so I went every day, whether it was snowing or not. And they had faith that they would receive support. And I benefited from Head Start, free and reduced price lunch meals, although I think I did make off with my lunch money a few times to buy candy. Don't tell anyone I did that. And we had things like vision screening and shots and other things that really made school possible every single day. So I really encourage you to think through these pieces and as you continue the work that you're doing. Okay, so that's kind of the context of where we're coming from. Next slide. At this point, what I'd like to do, two things. We don't want this to be like a long lecture where you're just sitting there. So the first thing I'd like to do is to make sure that you all have access to the Padlet so that you can take notes while Khushbu is talking and Angela is talking about the strategies that you're hearing and your reactions and questions about them. And you can, at a later point, also share what you are doing that works. Because one of the benefits of the Campaign for Grade Level Reading is this incredible network of folks who are doing so much that's effective. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to turn to Khushbu. Khushbu, would you tell folks a bit about the districts that you're supporting in the Greater Lehigh Valley? And also, what are some of the strategies that are improving attendance and making a difference?
Yeah, thank you, Cecilia. It's a pleasure to be here. So, hi, everyone. I'm hoping that you are having good weather and a good afternoon so far. Great. I was going to ask you to advance to the next slide, which is perfect. So I serve the Greater Lehigh Valley as the director of our community school network for the region. And I don't know if how much about Pennsylvania y'all know, so I'll level set a little bit and then talk about our network. So Pennsylvania has about 500 school districts. Our United Way of the Greater Lehigh Valley serves or spans 22 out of those 500 school districts. And predominantly our community school work resides in about 5 of those school districts that were determined to be highest need. So our network spans about 5 school districts, serves about 20,000 students in 33 schools, ranging from elementary, middle, and high. And urban, suburban, and rural populations. So all of our schools are very different, ranging from about a 3,000 student population on our lowest end to about 16,000 per district on our highest end. Very demographically diverse population of students that we serve across those 33 schools. One of our school districts, I believe, represents about 24 languages spoken and 42 countries that students represent. So just wanted to set some context of some of the strategies and work that I'll start describing in just a minute. So Cecilia, thank you. On this slide, you'll see our outcomes that our results-based accountability report produces. This is from our last year's snapshot. So like Cecilia said, chronic absence was a problem throughout the country as well as throughout our network pre-COVID. And so we were entering the school year of 21 to 22 with a 29% chronic absence across those 33 schools. And saw a 9% decrease in that chronic absence over that last year. So school year 22 to 23. And I'll identify some strategies that have contributed to that 9% decrease and getting us closer to that goal that you'll see of 6% chronic absence that we've set for ourselves for the United Way Community School Network for 2030. Alongside that, the correlation I wanted to make was that 2.9 percentage point increase in third grade students reading at grade level and at proficient or advanced at the PSSAs in comparison to where students across Pennsylvania saw an increase of about 2%. So again, there's something that our community schools are doing that's supporting students for a higher growth than even at the state level. So again, for a little bit of context of our work, our United Way is positioned in a very unique position of being the intermediary or backbone organization supporting the community school work. And so our intervention or our relationship with community schools has been multiple fold. One around rallying our local community in the Lehigh Valley around attendance and chronic absence. So Cecilia, if you jump to the next slide, please. This is a little bit of a timeline where you'll see how our United Way has engaged with our community school initiatives from about 20 years ago. We're about to go on 20 years of community schools now. But a couple key milestones are marked here. And at 2016, 2017, again, we realized that chronic absence was a network-wide issue that we were all trying to address, and launched our campaign for that was called Challenge 5. It was our attendance campaign where we rallied community partners, our local city governments, our school districts, as well as our community schools to really talk about chronic absence and attendance in a similar language. And this was inspired by what the campaign that Grand Rapids had happening in Michigan. So again, that resulted in some great conversation, and you'll still see, while we don't actively engage in this campaign anymore as a United Way, we still see a lot of Challenge 5 messaging across our community still. So again, very, very exciting to see. Our community school full service grant was received in 2018. And then we were in the midst of COVID as we were implementing that grant. And where we reside currently, I would say, is kind of that regrounding work within the community school framework that's actually helping us create systems to allow for more discussion around chronic absence. So Cecilia, if you'll jump, well, I already talked through this, so I'm going to jump to the next slide and identify some best practices that have resulted in that 9% decrease.
I know everyone's eager to hear that part. I just want to put a pin in on the Challenge 5 piece, Khushbu, because one of the things that I think many of our participants may be experiencing is that messaging that worked pre-pandemic isn't as effective now as it was then. And I'm not gonna, I think it's a discussion with everyone as opposed to, do you have the answer? But I just want to flag that. Yes, I know, we're not gonna do that to you. But I do want to flag it because I think this is a common challenge that we are all facing, and I think it would be exciting to share. Okay, now, I keep like tantalizing people with, here come the answers. So please share your strategies.
So in Challenge 5, I think while you're very absolutely correct that the same messaging is probably not going to result in the same outcomes right now, the few considerations or lessons that we learned are highlighted here for like a systems level campaign that Challenge 5 was. So forming win-win relationships with your community, right? So we utilized higher ed partners and healthcare partners and really shared our commitment to chronic absence and developed shared language and messaging around it, which we are now utilizing at the community school level. So I think those pieces have served us well as we navigate are navigating post-COVID. And alongside that, data has played a large role. And understanding and looking at data and defining things the same way. So really coming on a shared definition around chronic absence, how are we measuring it, and consistently having that data conversation is only sometimes possible when you have data sharing agreements. And so considering having a shared agreement or an MOU with some of those community partners so y'all can all share data and talk about it in the same way has served us well. And similarly, collaborative leadership structures and what they look like consistently across your network or school, and how that data piece and shared visioning plays in, and is housed in that collaborative leadership structure. I'll talk a little bit about what those look like in our community school network, but again, those shared leadership structures have allowed us to continue that conversation around chronic absence and really collaboratively come up with solutions of like, here are the interventions or strategies that we're going to utilize. So from a systems level, I would encourage everyone to think about, are any of these pieces at play in your own communities or schools, and how can you play a part in that? So strategies to consider at the school level, right? A lot of us are playing at this level. And I wanted to pull out a couple of our schools that have seen and strategies that they've utilized that have seen some large successes over the last year. So like I said, that 9% decrease could be attributed to so many things. And these are not necessarily the be all end all solutions, but some of these strategies have done really well and seen some significant outcomes. So morning greeters, it's a very easy concept. A lot of our schools, or one in particular, have employed having community partners welcome students in the morning, right? You feel something similar to what Cecilia said. You feel more inclined to attend school when you know there's caring adults at the school that are going to wait and welcome you. And it adds to that piece of hope, culture of sense and belonging that community schools really promote too. And so this concept of having our community partners serve as morning greeters has had resulted in like a 1.5% increase in daily attendance in just 1 month. Right. So that's significant. And it's such a I don't want to call it easy lift because it does involve a lot of coordinating, but such a simple thought of like, actually people feel good when they feel welcomed and they want to be there. So that strategy has served us well. Another one of our schools that has seen very, very significant decreases in chronic absence month over month is by utilizing that multi-tier recognition approach through a PBIS system. And the principal and the community school coordinator, alongside with our United Way support person, had developed this multi-tier recognition. So not only were they recognizing students individually for positive behavior, but they were recognizing grade levels, as well as school-wide recognition for perfect attendance, as well as hosting lunch bunches. So there were so many tiers at play in their attendance strategy that collectively they were seeing about this year, they were seeing about a 5% decrease in chronic absence month over month that they implemented these strategies. So again, considering what tiers of recognition are present at your school and how can you maybe layer one or two together to really see a heightened impact is what I'm pointing out here.
That's a fantastic example, Kushbu. And I know I noticed that Laura Downs, our senior fellow from Attendance Works, is in the audience. And I know in her work with Columbus, Ohio, also that deliberate integration of attendance and PBIS has had a great impact. Curious also for some of you who may be considering it or are already integrating attendance in PBIS, if you want to share anything either out loud or in the chat, that would be fantastic. Hey, all right, keep going, Kushbu. These are great examples. I love them.
Yeah. So that's tier 1, right? So that's where we're thinking whole school preventative. How do we get students to show up and nip chronic absence in the bud right before it's happening? Next slide, I'm going to actually jump into tier 2, which are our group intervention strategies that some of our community schools have seen significant outcomes with. One is, again, seems like a simple concept, but not always easy to implement in a school setting, is weekly attendance meetings. One of our schools that saw a 23% decrease in chronic absence over the last school year had attributed some of that success to weekly attendance meetings. Just the fact that their team came together every single week and discussed data around chronic absence and was really focused on that strategic intervention piece and kept that going for the year. They were attributing that success partly to just keeping along with the data consistently. So again, as you're thinking site level or school level interventions, even having some of these conversations and sharing language, sharing strategies, and being able to talk about the data pretty consistently is helpful. And we're happy to share, what those meetings look like if you're interested. And then the other strategy that has resulted in pretty significant outcomes is our monthly attendance ambassadors, or in our network, a lot of our schools are able to utilize our local AmeriCorps program to have attendance ambassadors at their school. 2 of our schools that saw significant success, about a 5% decrease in chronic absence over the year that they had the attendance ambassador serving. And they had implemented nudge letters as the intervention that this attendance ambassador really held. Resulted in that 5% decrease in chronic absence over that year. And they had figured out how to mail merge and send out template letters, not only to students who needed intervention around chronic absence, but everyone in the school was getting a letter, whether you were perfect attendance, whether you were at risk for chronic absence or already on that chronic absence trajectory, as a means to engage with families and parents and share whether it's successes of your child and encouraging continued attendance, or whether it is, hey, we're noticing a decrease in your attendance. We challenge you to attend every single day this month over the next month. So those letter templates were very carefully crafted to be more encouraging and less punitive around attendance. And the one piece that I'll mention is, if you have a local AmeriCorps program or a VISTA program, see if they'd like to partner with you and have something like a nudge letter strategy be the thing that they hold. Because again, schools are busy, everyone's busy. And so if you can have folks from the community who are invested in school success in their local community, that's a great resource to consider utilizing. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I love those. I love the systems level, the tier 1, the tier 2. These are just some of the things. I put the Padlet in again so that folks can either put questions in there or give you a like for particular strategies. But thank you for sharing. So hang on, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversation. But first, before we do that, let's have Angela come on. And if you would talk about what you did in your elementary school, Angela, to really lead attendance improvement efforts and what its impact has been on your community. So welcome.
Sure, thank you. Hi, I'm Angela Logan, and I am the proud principal of O.C. Johnson School in Yuma, Arizona. If you don't know where that is, we are in the very southwest corner of Arizona. So our weather today is about 115 degrees. So if you're going to visit, don't visit during the summer is my recommendation. So I'm going to talk kind of from a district level down to my school level. I'll touch on kind of the district resources that we have. My associate Soup was going to join us, but he's off to a different training in Phoenix. So I'll kind of touch on the district level and then drill into what we do here at O.C. Johnson. Yuma School District 1, so we have 13 elementary schools and 5 middle schools. If you see, I mean, you can read the numbers. O.C. Johnson, we're sitting at about 82% free or reduced lunch. That number is probably actually higher than that. We just are on a program where we've continued with 100% of our kids get free lunch, so we don't have to do the paperwork every year. So that's actually a beautiful thing, and I'm not going to touch that because every kid gets free breakfast, free lunch. McKinney-Vento students, we as a school are sitting at about 2%, ESS students 10%, and then our EL population is about 21% of our students. Next slide, please. So some of the barriers that we see across our district, and in particular at O.C. Johnson, is we see a lot of non-traditional family structures. So I have a lot of foster parents. I have a lot of aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, friends raising students, or students jumping around from house to house, depending on who has a place for them to be. With that comes from a high poverty level and a lot of food and housing insecurities. So during COVID, we saw a lot of turnover with students because of housing. So it was dependent on where they could get housing. We had a lot of students leave during COVID, and actually our enrollment dropped. And then now we're starting to get students back because of housing, the permanent housing that they're able to get now. At O.C. Johnson, we do unfortunately have a high incarceration rate with our parents and guardians. So we often see, they're going away for short periods of time, and we have some that are away for long periods of time. So that goes with that trauma that you talked about. That impacts students, and that impacts them coming to school.
Or even when they're in the school, whether they're fully able to focus because their minds and concerns are elsewhere. Yeah, that's really challenging, Angela.
Absolutely. And we've made it a point to know in Yuma, you can see, who's been arrested, and to know if they're coming to us, from a night of trauma from their parent or guardian being arrested. We make sure to give them a little extra love that day without obviously making it known that why we're doing that. The work-home balance. So again, many of our parents and guardians, we have field workers. So those are very long hours. And we have job insecurities. So we have many of our parents and guardians jump around because they go to where they can find the job. So balancing that is very hard when you're working nights or when your hours are very inconsistent. So we understand that that's going to affect attendance as well as academic achievement with the students. And then the parent knowledge and resources. So kind of like what's available for them. We're trying to combat the barriers by making them more aware of what's available in the community, and then in particular what's available at O.C. Johnson. Next slide, please. So real quick, like I said, district level support. So our district has provided home liaisons. We have a grant to have a counselor at every single one of our schools. And then we have 2 family literacy programs to serve our district. Next one, please. Thank you. So home liaisons actually came about pre-COVID. The district provided our 5 highest poverty elementary schools with a part-time home liaison. OCJ was one of them. And then after COVID, the next 4 highest poverty elementary schools, our bigger elementary schools who are not as high poverty did add a 3rd secretary to help with attendance. I will tell you, many of us, so I'm provided a part-time home liaison, but I do use my title funding to make her full-time at OC Johnson. So we made that a priority at our school that we really need her. So we use our title funding to ensure that she's here full-time.
Great.
Counselors, like I said, we have a school safety grant. So that ensures that all of our schools have a full-time counselor, which that has only been the last 3 years. Prior to that, we did share counselors. So that has been a huge impact. And we utilize what's called Character Strong. That's an SEL curriculum district-wide. Throughout the district, so we have 2 family literacy programs. One is a Strong Families program, and that's housed at OC Johnson. And one is a family engagement program, and that is shared between 2 of our other, what we call North End, it's higher poverty schools. They share a family literacy specialist. And the goal of these 2 are parent education and PAC time. And PAC time is parent and child together time. So we're pushing for that across the district. Specific to OC Johnson, so we very effectively, in my opinion, utilize our home liaison. So she's not just to send letters to parents for truancy. She's not just to set up those meetings. We want her to be seen as an asset to our parents. So prior to even sending letters out, she calls them and has conversations to ask what the barriers are. Why is your student missing so much school? How can we help you get your student to school so that they're not feeling that it's an attack? That
it's a relationship and it's support. Yeah, that's
absolutely
fantastic.
Absolutely. And we are actually Yuma County's first community school, and that started pre-COVID. And then COVID hit and threw a big wrench in that. But the last couple of years, we've been rebuilding our community school model. So the idea behind a community school is that we bring resources to our campus, and we are the hub of our community. So on campus, we have a health clinic on site, and that's partnered through Regional Center for Border Health. So one of our big healthcare providers in Yuma. They provide all of that. They fund everything having to do with the clinic. They just house it on our campus. So that's been wonderful. We also have our food pantry, and that's supported by Yuma Community Food Bank. So they make deliveries, and then we're able to have families shop, quote unquote, in our food pantry. And that includes things for like the babies. They provide us with formula and diapers and baby food because we were finding that was, a huge barrier because it's expensive.
It's very expensive. Anyone who's ever had an infant knows what that stuff costs. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not to mention the shortages sometimes.
Yes, for sure. We have a closet, so we are a uniform school. We provide uniforms and non-uniforms because we want kids to feel comfortable out in the community as well and not feel they have to wear their uniforms when they're, going to Walmart or Target. So that's based on a lot of donations. The biggest thing that people ask me kind of how we do what we do or how we get the results that we get. And one of the biggest things is just relationships. And that's relationships amongst our staff. We're very close staff, and our relationships with our families. So we don't leave it on the teachers to be the only ones to get to know the families, to be the only ones who are the caring adult, or what we call the ACE. From my office staff to our teachers, cafeteria ladies, custodians, everybody engages with our families. And I know Kushbu mentioned like morning greeters. We have morning greeters from staff every single morning. And the goal, my position is out in the front of the school. My goal is to get to know every single student's name, so you can greet them by name, and then they feel that connection. Oh, they really want me here. So I think getting to know our students and our families has been a huge piece with us, because then when they have a barrier to attendance, when they're finding a problem, they're comfortable coming to us and sharing that problem and allowing us to give them resources. It's not an embarrassment thing. It's more of a please help me, because we built those relationships.
I love what you say about this culture and this teamwork. Angela, when you look ahead at the coming school year, how do you make sure that everyone's on that same page?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, when interviewing for new staff members, I embed questions in there. We are what's called a Kids at Hope school, and that's just a belief that all kids are capable of success, no exceptions. And so when interviewing, I ask questions. Yes, how do you plan lessons? How do you do these things? But really, how do you make sure every kid feels special? How do you make sure you know what's happening with the families? How would you address if a parent came to you and told you this, that, and the other? So I make sure that my staff is aware of who we are as I'm hiring new. The whole staff comes together pre-service, everybody, and we talk about what we can do the first week of school to make sure parents are comfortable. And especially we're talking our preschool and kinder parents, because our 1st through 5th grade, many of them are returning. So we have relationships with many of them, but the important part is building those relationships with our preschool and kinder parents, because they're new and they're scared and they're leaving their baby for the first time. And they need to know that their kiddo is going to feel safe and feel comfortable. So we take every single staff member that we have, if they're not assigned to a particular class, like if they're not a 1st grade teacher, let's say, all of my paras and my office staff, cafeteria ladies, are all on hand to help with kinder and preschool, so that we can help the families feel welcome, and ask questions and take them on a tour if they need, just so we start to build that relationship from day one.
That's so fantastic. And can I ask you one more follow-up question?
Sure.
Early on, you talked about the non-traditional families and the high mobility sometimes for the kids. So day one isn't always the first day of the school year for some of your kids and families. What do you do to make sure that someone coming in October, September, January, how do you extend that welcome to those families and students?
Yeah, so we do exactly what we do on day one. So if I have new kids coming in October, my clerk, I'm right here in the office. We have a very small office, so I hear when they come in and they're talking, and my clerk is very good about introducing all of the resources we have. And she always recommends our Strong Families program, so our family lit program. And then I go out and I give that family a tour, and then we have a kiddo from that class, whatever class that kiddo is going to be in, come and join me, so that we kind of have a partner from day one with the student, and then that the parent is very aware of all the resources that we have available from day one.
Fantastic. So I think we're wrapping up your comments. Do you want to share with us your results in terms of attendance?
Yeah, so I'll first say last year we had about 56 meetings. So that's one of the things we do with home liaisons. If we do get to that 10%, we set up a meeting with myself and my home liaison and we address the barriers. And so our chronic absentee rate I'm going to talk from after COVID, because obviously COVID does, that was ridiculous. But after COVID, so from 21, 22 to this last school year, our chronic absentee rate dropped 6%. So that's our goal, is to keep, pinching away at that, because we do take it one case at a time, because we're able to do that and have those conversations. And if we can get one, we can get two, we can get three. We just keep moving.
Yep. But I have to say also, many of the things you're talking about that you're doing school-wide, those are your foundational and tier 1 interventions, for sure. So yes, the one at a time is important, but you're doing the broader work as well.
Absolutely. Our goal is to make OCJ a place kids want to be. If a kid wants to be here, they're going to push their parent to get them here. So that's our goal.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've reached the point. Thank you both, Khushbu and Angela, for sharing your strategies and about your communities. I think we've reached the point now where we can have a broader discussion. So this is the part where, if you want to talk and participate, just raise your hand if you have questions or comments. That would be fantastic. Turn on your camera if you can. And we're ready to go. This is the fun part, where it's very unstructured and in response to what you're interested in. Yes, Wesley, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wesley Biles. I work for Learn to Earn Dayton. We're a backbone organization in Dayton, Ohio. And one of the things that we always are kind of struggling with is really being able to get the message to parents about how important attendance is as it relates to their education, without demeaning or, making it seem like they are, not doing what they're supposed to do. Really being able to have a conscientious message that is warming, but it is, sometimes it's a bit of cold water. And when you do that, you sometimes offend people, or, even though circumstances befit them not to be able to always bring their students to school, every day really does matter. So getting that information to parents is kind of what I'd like for us to kind of talk about, so I can get some ideas on how to really get the messaging that gets through but doesn't demean.
Well, why don't we start with Khushbu, if you want to say a bit more on your nudge letters, and Angela, anything you'd like to add, and I'll clean up. Go ahead.
Of course. So Wesley, I would say, like I said, the tier 1 strategy of nudge letters has worked very well for us. We saw that 5% decrease in chronic absence in one of our or two of our schools over the 1 year that we did place that intervention. And how those nudge letters were formulated was there was a cadence of, I believe, every 12 to 15 weeks, the attendance ambassador or whoever holds that attendance data at your school reaches out to parents to say, hey, keeping attendance at the top of mind. Here's where our school's chronic absence rate is. Here's where we're trying to go. Here's where your student is, and leaving that letter with a challenge to parents. Hey, either we challenge you to continue the perfect attendance or the amazing work that you're doing in getting your student to school, or we challenge you, if you're at risk for chronic absence, as we've identified, or we challenge you to, for this month, miss less than 2 days of school. And the goal with our nudge letters was to print them actually on the back of an attendance work poster that we adapted for our network of Attend Today, Achieve Tomorrow. And so starting the school year with that message of Attend Today, Achieve Tomorrow, and what regular attendance does for student success over time, and they kept seeing the same visual and message with those nudge letters. So even having some kind of consistent message or challenge to your parents could prove useful. I'll stop there and let you share your thoughts.
So I definitely appreciate that. I think one of the problems, one of the barriers, that we have here is, the muscle memory of not having to send our students to school during COVID, is still, it's breaking a little bit, right? So it's getting a little bit better, but we also have some language barriers and some literacy barriers, where parents, some of them maybe don't read as well as they should, and anything elongated is just drowned out, or how the attention span, right? Oh yeah, I see its attendance, yeah, and they kind of blow it over. And the academia, we love data, we love people to be able to understand the data, but to really be able to break that down in a simplified form. We have a transient population where we could send 100 letters and they move every couple weeks, or living with family or whatever that is. That also has been a bit of a challenge. So just a nice, clear, direct message that says, oh my gosh, I have to get Jimmy up because he could lose 5 points on his OST test doesn't resonate. In fact, but that's actually what's happening. And that's kind of what we're kind of looking at, maybe going to football games and basketball games where families are generating and coming to, and maybe doing a more, audible message, in that term around someplace that they're already congregating is one of the things we're thinking about. But I'm just trying to get every idea I can right now. So I appreciate your
there's another intervention that we had. One of our community school coordinators was very in touch with the local community that they were serving, and figured out that our families were listening to a local radio station that was in Spanish predominantly, and so they were serving a predominantly Spanish population at their school as well, and they had gotten a spot on the radio station's ad section to say, hey, back to school is August 3rd or whatever, and sharing a little snippet of how important attendance is had resulted in some good traction as well. So even like reaching out to your local PBS or local radio stations, or like where parents are already tuned in, could also be some good strategies.
That's great advice, Kushbu. And Wesley, there's some interesting stuff in the chat for you as well. And I'll just add in right now what we're working on with the U.S. Department of Ed and the Ad Council is a launch of a national attendance awareness campaign. And they are testing messages that work. They're retesting the ones that we're suspecting maybe not as effective anymore. So they're testing those, they're testing new ones, and we are eagerly waiting for the results of the new campaign, which should drop by the beginning of September. So be on the lookout for that. But I think you're getting some good advice and thoughts from Kushbu. If it were easy, we would have solved it by now, right? All of us. And so I think I encourage you to persist. Kaylin had a great note about just an insight into how much people are able to read at what level, et cetera, in her community. And I would encourage you to do that in yours. In the campaign, I know many of us are excited at the film Sentenced, that Steph Curry produced, right? About the adult literacy levels, or illiteracy, we should say. So switching to those other modes, looking for any way in which you can get people's attention. I loved Angela, what her secretary does and what she does. That's face-to-face communication with the right messages, offering support. So it's going to be multiple modes, multiple solutions is my suspicion. Okay, Heidi, you had a question.
Hello, I am located in Northfield, Minnesota. It's a very small town with 3 elementary schools. One thing that we have is a language barrier, as Mr. Wesley was saying. Our Hispanic or non-ML students, it's growing. But something that I have always heard teachers said is that kids need to learn their first language before coming to school. This past year, I spent a lot of time in kindergarten classes, and I noticed the structure in kindergarten is nonstop. It is amazing how structured it is, how fast kids needs to learn. And I was amazed. They're already learning first grade level.
Yes, it isn't like when we were kids.
No, so it's not colors, it's not numbers anymore. So I think that's affecting our second language students. This year I took the time and talked to parents about doing that learning, like the ABCs, the numbers, the colors in English over the summer, because the structures are so tight. But at the same time, there's a lot of phonics, a lot of ins and outs. And I noticed the kids that only speak English, they can grow so much faster. But the learning for the ML students, they are always going to fall behind due to the structure that the
Do you have a
school.
question? Are you seeking advice from one of our speakers?
Well, I'm wondering, like, how is it the other schools are doing so ML students aren't falling behind?
Angela, do you want to take this one? This seems like a more general question.
Sure, yeah. So a couple of things. Parents and guardians are very unaware of what kinder is, right, at this point, because we think, oh, when I was in kinder, this is what I did. So the rigor has increased dramatically. Like, I wouldn't even say first grade, I would say like more second grade. What second grade used to be, that's what kindergartners are expected to do, which is sad, but one of the things that we do is pack time, and that's parent and child together time. So they go with our family literacy specialists and talk about what they're going to see in the classroom. And then the parent goes into the classroom and sits alongside the child as another student. So they're not in there to volunteer. They're not in there to help. They're in there to learn so that they can see what their student is learning so they can support that at home. If it's a second language learning parent, then we have a translator in that room with them, whether it be a paraprofessional, the teacher. Many of my teachers speak Spanish. My home liaison has gone into pack time to communicate with those parents, because it is, if a student is strong in their first language, then it's much easier to transition to English, right? We also have what we call acceleration, but most people call it an intervention for EL students specifically. So to learn the language. So we're kind of taking a step back, helping them learn the language and then pushing them into the grade level standards in the classroom.
So in terms of tying it back to attendance, Heidi, some of what I've seen that is so effective is not so much talking at parents about attendance in kindergarten or pre-K, but showing them, right? Because at the communication challenge at those grades, it's twofold. One is about just not understanding why it's important to be there every day. And then the other is the wrong-headed notion that, oh, it's just play. It's not important. It's just childcare. So some of the most effective message I've seen actually never says a word about attendance. For example, like Children's Aid for their pre-K, they created a series of adorable videos that just had little kids and parents talking about what I did in preschool today. And in their conversation, you really get the sense of the rigor and what's really happening and who cannot respond to cute little kids, right? So I think that kind of messaging is brilliant because it tells the story of what's happening in school and makes the case for why you should be there or make sure your kids are there. Hey, Kushbu, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to kind of the both of the questions that we've gotten so far. One thing I think community schools also has been helpful in promoting is that collaborative leadership structure that I touched on when I was speaking earlier, and having parents at the table, right? And having them as stakeholders in their own student success. Parents are their child's first teacher, and really acknowledging that and saying, hey, chronic absence is a problem in our school. How can we effectively get this message out to your community? And having them be part of that decision making. For us in our community school network, we have collaborative leadership structures called the Community School Leadership Team, in which parents who are consistently showing involvement would be invited to that leadership team, and formulating some of those interventions or strategies that we're talking about. And so I would encourage y'all to figure out, how can we identify parents at your school that can be involved and are grounded in community to help frame some of that language and messaging as well.
Fantastic. I think they're about to close our room. Can we show the last slide? I should have paid closer attention. So we are issuing a 50% reduction in 5 years challenge. And I was so excited, Kushbu, to see that, you are already aggressively going beyond 50% by 2030. So we're going to give you the link afterwards, but this is a challenge for all our communities. We want to close that gap in attendance. We want to return to better than pre-pandemic, which is why we're issuing the challenge. So thank you, Angela. Thank you, Kushbu. We'll see everyone back in the main room in just a few moments.
So we have a lot of information to share, and so we may not have a lot of time towards the tail end for individual questions per each panelist. So please, I am encouraging you to put your questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring that chat very closely so that we can answer those in live time in the chat. And if there are any burning questions holistically for everybody, we will get to those at the very end. Okay, so it's at this point that I'd like to introduce our first set of speakers, Martha Ann Todd and April Hobson from the Columbus Technical College in Columbus, Georgia. They both have an extraordinary level of expertise in education, particularly with experience as teachers and leaders within the field. They will begin our conversation by sharing more about language as a critical starting point in the pathway to literacy. April and Martha, go ahead and take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Martha Ann Todd, the president here at Columbus Technical College, which is one of 22 technical and community colleges in the state of Georgia. One of the programs that we provide here is training for individuals who are going to work in child care and pre-K facilities. We call that early childhood care and education. It targets educators and caregivers for birth to 4. 2 years ago, we were honored and lucky enough to receive a grant from the Sandra Dill Center for Early Language and Literacy Development. And together with our partners, United Way of Chattahoochee Valley and Muskogee County School District, Enrichment Services Program, which is the Head Start provider in our area, we were able to spend 2 years working with Emily Rubin to provide training and education for our teachers and our students on using the Languages of Missing Link toolkit in their work, both in the classroom training new students to go into the field, but also in taking that into the classroom as they go to work and using that with their students in the field. We were, during that time, able to utilize some funds that we received from the Office of Adult Education at the Technical College System and the Department of Early Care and Learning here in Georgia to build out a very large training program for that workforce. And in the process of that, we realized that here are two things that we can integrate to promote language development more widely than ever. We knew the importance of the age of students that these students will be working with. And so April is going to tell you how we actually worked to integrate the Language is a Missing Link toolkit and the work that we did with Emily Rubin and the opportunities that we had to expand the workforce development for this age of student and really build out opportunities for language development. So I'll kick it over to April, who has really been leading that work and is going to tell you all about it.
Thank you. So as Martha Ann was saying, we were honored and just very lucky to be able to partner with Emily Rubin, who was one of the creators of Language as a Missing Link toolkit. And we were able to create something called the Language Champion Training Program. Next slide. This initiative really has been very impactful. We've been able to use this currently in our early childhood classrooms, and we've been able to not only train those students, but also bring in community partners. And so the video that you're about to see, we felt it was important that you not hear from Martha Ann or myself, but you hear from those community partners that were in that room, that you're able to hear from the students and the educators themselves on what this toolkit has done for the early child care workforce here in Columbus, Georgia.
In this module, I have the opportunity to introduce to you a new toolkit that was created called Language as a Missing Link. This toolkit was created to heighten the awareness of all who interact with children of the importance of language development. My name is Emily Rubin, and I'm a speech and language pathologist, and I'm passionate about the connection between engagement and the development of language. People often ask me, how did I get involved in the Language as a Missing Link project? And actually, my background's in autism. I had been working in the field of autism for a number of years before I even chose to go into speech and language pathology. And as I was getting to know children who are neurodivergent and had different ways of processing and different ways of communicating, I kept thinking that there was something missing. People were not noticing that our children who are autistic are trying to communicate, but people weren't noticing it. And so then they would end up using challenging behaviors instead. And I said, something's there that people are not noticing.
So I'm really excited to learn about the Language as a Missing Link program today because language is the foundation of education in early childhood.
I think that this toolkit could be really beneficial in our community as we're really experiencing some deficits in early language development and early childhood development.
I previously worked with a school district as the district MTSS, or multi-tier system of supports for students coordinator, as well as the literacy coordinator. And upon arrival in that position, I noticed that there were many children in kindergarten who did not score well on the GKIDS assessment. And I was very concerned, of course, and looking for answers about how to help those children but have the ability to reach their potential.
It is active engagement that fuels language development. Language development creates a pathway to literacy. Children read because they want to hear what other people have to say. Children write because they want to communicate with other people. That literacy then fuels academic success, and language also contributes to emotional resilience. So we're going to learn a toolkit so we can be empowered to create environments that are responsive to where children are at.
The thing I love most about working with Emily and doing this is because our students need this tool. This is a tool they can take with them into the field and use it when they have their own classroom, their own children to work with.
Because of my background in autism, I've understood that language is not just a set of words or symbols that you use. but it's really a way of communicating. You need to know why children are communicating, for what purposes and what functions.
For us in adult education, our family literacy program is going to use the toolkit to empower our parents, because they are their children's first teachers, with those skills and tools that they need to support language.
Our instructors are preparing teachers for the very youngest, earliest students that we have. They will have opportunity to learn the toolkit, learn to use skills and strategies in the classroom with their students that will help them support their students in developing strong and effective language and communication skills.
We are so excited about this work, and to be paired with the Deal Center and Columbus Technical College to learn about this toolkit. We have a large TAP group. We have about 70 TAP teachers a year, and we're so interested in, with the new Early Literacy Act, how we can use this toolkit to incorporate with all of our teachers.
I currently am working with teachers in our area in learning all about the science of reading, and I'm so excited to learn more and help them understand the importance of language development and how it can help them better serve their students.
So when I got together with the Get Georgia Reading campaign and Dr. Ariane Weldon, and we looked at some of the factors that go into helping children become literate and develop their literacy, engagement kept coming up. How do we actively engage with children? Well, we do that by paying attention to them and noticing where they are at in terms of their own development, whether it be through language development and the way of communicating, and adjusting our own style to meet their needs. All too often, I've made mistakes. I didn't notice that there was a language vulnerability there, and there were opportunities. I could have changed the way I was interacting or the environment. And I want to empower early childhood educators to be able to notice these things proactively so that they can see children need hands-on materials or different modes of expression so children can thrive and be actively engaged.
My name is LaShondra Cook, and I am a student. I am taking up early childhood care education. In my experience as being a parent of a toddler, I love to communicate with her, make her understand like what we are talking about, for her to understand, like, to see if she can repeat back what I said.
I think I really like second grade, but more recently starting the trade school, I'm with True Spring. I've been able to work with the pre-Kers, and they've kind of been hitting my heart.
I think all children can benefit from the toolkit. I think there's not a single demographic that does a perfect job of enriching their child in any capacity, and no enrichment is too much enrichment.
Thank you for joining us for this training. We hope that you are able to benefit from it as much as we are here at Columbus Tech, and that it benefits your students and their students in the future.
So the Language as a Missing Link badge program really introduces this toolkit to our students, and they're able to employ those practices as a well-being indicator. They strengthen their pathways to literacy, and they're improving the education and mental health and overall well-being outcomes. The micro-credential badge signifies that students have met a standardized performance criteria that's in the classroom. To date, we have awarded 25 badges here at Columbus Technical College with an expectation of 180 by the end of the year. But I am happy to report, as of today, with the ending of spring semester and almost the ending of summer semester, we have will surpass those 180 badges that we've issued out to students. And so these are students that are going into that early childhood workforce field with this toolkit to have with them, as Emily was saying before. This right here is the digital representation of that badge. And the great thing about this in the world that we live now with social media and so many online platforms, the students can then share this on any type of social media, to include LinkedIn. They can put it in their email signature. And also when you click on this digital representation, it will take you to the badging program, and it will show anybody, to include employers, what the students accomplished and mastered and the skills that go along along with that. So we're very proud of that and very happy to be issuing that out to our students. The way we do that is in our ECC 1103 class, which is Growth and Development of Young Children. This class provides students with that comprehensive understanding of social and emotional development and well-being across various age groups, and it talks and focuses on cognitive development as well. During this course, the students explore all the importance of social interaction, language, and it really highlights areas of toddlerhood to include ages 2, 3, and 4. And that's very significant when we talk about language development and that cognitive and social emotional development. The video that we're talking about, the training video, and you can find that video and more at the Deal Center website. And I think in the chat, they shared the link earlier so you can look for yourself. It really kind of serves to reinforce everything the students learning in the classroom. And as Emily was stating, she really wants to give those students all they can and be their cheerleader. So when they're dealing with students and they have their very own classroom, they'll be able to see and recognize certain things when it comes to language development and be able to address those issues. This video right here is going to have Emily introducing the toolkit. So this is what we actually use in the classroom, where our instructor, him or herself, would introduce this to the students. Go ahead.
Welcome. In this module, I have the opportunity to introduce to you a new toolkit that was created called Language as a Missing Link. This toolkit was created to heighten the awareness of all who interact with children of the importance of language development. In particular, I'm going to teach you a tool called Notice Language Indicators of Well-Being. This is going to help us understand the importance of language development on a pathway to literacy, academic achievement, and emotional resilience. Welcome. In this module, So we're going to use this tool to guide us to be developmentally responsive as we interact with not only children who are younger, but this goes all the way into adolescence and to young adulthood. The Notice Language Indicators of Well-Being allows us to focus in on 4 specific areas: why children are using language, how they're using language, how are they coping with others, and how are they coping on their own. You're going to use this tool to figure out where that child's at, what those possible opportunities are, and how you can be guiding and supporting them. As you will see, it goes from before words, emerging language, to those that are developing their language competence by using both simple and complex sentence structures, but only in more familiar situations, to those who are fully conversational. You can look at the sections right below the banner at the top to figure out where the child that you're supporting is along this kind of continuum. If you do not yet notice language development within a given range, please find a column that best matches where that child's at so that you can start providing more developmental support. So we're going to use this. This young group of kids is about to go off and brush their teeth. This teacher wants to make sure that they understand the steps of this task. So she doesn't just tell them how to brush their teeth, they act it out, and they do it in such a way where you get a sense that they truly understand what's about to happen. All right, now what does that look like in a read aloud? This young group of kids.
So as you saw in those 3 clips, those are 3 clips from our training program, which is about 49 minutes long. And they covered things such as using the toolkits and also classroom observation. Emily did a great job because in the training itself, she actually asked our students that are being trained to go out where they're in the field and record their students so she can help them identify if there's any issues in that classroom in regards to language development and other issues that are going on. And it's just really great to see because in every training that she discussed with our students, it was what the students brought to her, not just a pre-planned video recording, which was very nice. And so I hope we're having as much fun as those kids were about brushing their teeth today, but just an example of all the great work going on. With that, we couldn't have done it without our community partners, or Martha Ann mentioned that earlier, ESP, which is an enrichment service program, and they are all the Head Starts here in Columbus, Georgia. Georgia. They serve over 10,000 families of children of low income in the Chattahoochee Valley. And really their mission is to empower families to thrive through quality education and services. Another partner was United Way of Chattahoochee Valley, and their mission is to reduce poverty. They were also part of this video as well too. And their overall vision is a collaborative, resilient region where every person can thrive. And once again, I'll say this, you know, here at Columbus Technical College, we want to not only invest in language development, but invest in our students that are going into that workforce, because it gives us that opportunity to enhance that emotional well-being, those literacy outcomes, and just the overall quality of life. We want to provide this language champion program to any audience that we can. So not only are we providing it to our students here that are enrolled in our early childhood program, but as we stated before, community partnerships. Anyone that's interested, like I said, can go to the Deal Center. I've seen in the chat lots of links and things where you can go and get that toolkit. Soon, the Deal Center will be going through a website revamp in which when they're done in just a few weeks, they'll be adding the training video that we showed snippets of today. So you can actually download that as well and use that in your community, along with all of the toolkit, the PDFs that were shown today. And just thank you so much. If you have any questions or you want to put anything in the chat, our information, Martha, Ann, and myself, just email us or give us a buzz, and we'll be happy to help you with those things.
Thank you so much, April and Martha, and we really appreciate it. Just another plug-in, if you have any questions about the toolkit, it was added to the chat, so I just want to make note of that. My colleague Sarah Torian did indicate that she put that in the chat, so find the toolkit there. It will also be included in the follow-up message that I send out after our session concludes today. Also, I will include the link to the Get Georgia Reading website, which has so many resources for everybody. So please look for that resource there as well. And Martha, Ann, and April will be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions about the toolkit, they'll be taking that up. So thank you. Now we're going to just switch gears and talk a little bit about Vision to Learn. I would like to introduce my colleague Corinne Kroger with Vision to Learn, who wears two hats, not one, but two, and serves as the National Director of Operations and the Iowa Regional Director. Those are her two hats. She also has extensive knowledge of the Campaign for Grade Level Reading from her experience as a community lead during her time with the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. She will walk us through the national program that is making a huge difference in ensuring children are ready for school. I also want to just give a personal shout out to Vision to Learn. When I was a community lead back in Story County, we did take advantage of this program, and I have firsthand knowledge of seeing lots of smiles and kids getting their glasses for the first time. Following Corinne's information will be Cheryl Warner and Kate Bennett from the United Way of Central Iowa. They do serve our largest city in Iowa, which is Des Moines. Cheryl and Kate will lead the education pillar work within UWCI, and they support programs reaching children aged birth to 18. They do this through partnerships and a diverse number of programs, which we will learn about and how they overlap with literacy. So at this point, I'd like to pitch it over to Corinne. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malai. And I'm really grateful to be here and be part of this panel today. I really just enjoyed the last presentation. And so I'm just very honored to be able to speak on behalf of Vision to Learn and with the campaign folks here today. So today I want to kind of set the table a little bit before I really jump into Vision to Learn and our program model. And so I'd like to start with just data. And so taking a look here at this first slide, we kind of have this broken out into a few different bullet points. But, you know, when we first started in this space here in Iowa, we started to take a look at how many kiddos were accessing vision care services through their school-based centers, whether that be in an academic setting, K through 12 public school, or even outside of that, pre-K school and beyond. And so when we look at this data, we know that roughly 1 in 4 students have a vision problem, but many times our children are unable to articulate that they have a vision problem or really be able to identify it themselves. So these students are often underdiagnosed and untreated, and attending school each and every day and trying to be successful in the classroom. Research shows and tells us that glasses are critical for a student's educational achievement, especially when we look at the second stat here and see that 80% of what a child learns is visual up until the age of 12. And this is incredibly important for those kids that are in those early developmental stages. So when they're attending school and they're unable to see the classroom board, or they're learning how to read, K through third grade, and they're unable to read that printed text, it can be especially challenging for our young people. And yet, as many of 95% of our first graders, especially those living in underserved communities or low-income populations who need glasses, do not have them. So how does Vision to Learn come into play? We can go to the next slide. Thank you. Founded in 2012, Vision to Learn seeks to solve this problem affecting more than 3 million kiddos across the country. And how do we do this? We have a very scalable, tangible program model that allows our program to meet the kids directly where they're at, which is either at school or their community organization. Vision to Learn doesn't just stop and serve students in a school setting during the school year. We have an opportunity to work all year round, partnering with school districts, private schools. We have a very vibrant partnership with library systems in Georgia, and I think I saw Tom Brooks on the call today. And so we're able to partner with community organizations throughout the summer months as well to provide the service and remove many barriers that families might be experiencing in terms of accessing vision care. So we bring our mobile clinic directly to the school to provide this service. It is at no cost for those that participate, no out-of-pocket cost. And we're able to do that through a variety of funding streams, which I will touch on in a few more slides down the road here. Our program, since we launched in 2012, has impacted more than 3 million children across the United States. We provide vision screenings, eye exams, and then, of course, if a student needs a set of eyeglasses, they have the opportunity to select those on our mobile clinic. And to date, we've helped over 475,000 students with those eyeglasses at no cost. Next slide. So we are uniquely positioned to significantly impact children because of our unique program model of bringing vision care directly to the school. You can see here in the photograph, this is the interior of our mobile vision clinic. It's a retrofitted 20-foot Mercedes Sprinter van that is set up just like what an eye doctor's office would look like. We refer to it as our eye doctor's office on wheels. And so we begin by setting the groundwork with our community organizations or partners where we are going to implement this program. And it begins with parent communication. So we work with each of our sites to conduct training with their school nurses or screening vision partner, with the building administrators, front desk staff, teachers, and we communicate what the steps of the process are. And it all begins with the vision screening. Every state has various state mandates in terms of what is required for a vision screening. And so what's really, I think, pretty cool about our program model is that when we partner with a site or an individual school, we are able to provide a vision screening for all students. So if we are in an elementary building, we're providing a vision screening for K through 5. If we are in a middle school, it's 6 through 8, or in a high school, it's 9 through 12. So all students within that eligible site will receive that vision screening. And from there, we identify the students who need an eye exam. Again, communication with parents is key. And so we are communicating throughout this process. And any student who is in need of an eye exam will receive communication that goes home identifying that their student does in fact need an eye exam, and we provide them with 3 different paths that a family could follow. And so through those paths, a family may decide to stick with a local permanent medical home where they have established care, or they might need access to an eye exam and eyeglasses, and they'll participate in the Vision to Learn program. And so we are able to provide the eye exam with a licensed optometrist right there on the clinic. And then students will select a pair of eyeglasses with the help of our optician. And then we return about 2 to 3 weeks post-exam, and we host a really fun glasses celebration. So one thing that has been really kind of part of our program model since we started is looking at impact and data. And so recently, the Journal of American Medical Association published a study that was conducted by Johns Hopkins University Wilmer Eye Institute about 3 years ago. And through this study, it was a research conducted with our Baltimore City Public Schools. And we were really measuring what the impact that a glasses intervention may have for students attending school. And so you can see here just high level some of these stats that we have. You know, students that were provided glasses improved their standard English test scores by an additional months of classroom instruction. And those that were performing in that lowest quartile experienced a much more significant impact once they received their pair of glasses. And that was equivalent to 4 to 6 months of additional class time. And then you can see here just some other notes that came out of this study. You know, providing a glasses intervention can have an immediate impact on a student. And so oftentimes they outperformed the one-to-one technology interventions that were taking place, or even some of that extended school day time, just by getting a student into a pair of glasses and allowing them to see clearly. Next slide. So when we take a look at the United States here, I wanted to demonstrate and just kind of show the breadth of work that we have since we've launched our organization in 2012. We are currently operating 45 mobile vision clinics and 8 inside examination lanes. Those inside lanes are housed right inside of a school building, so very similar to a school-based health center. But our clinicians are tearing down and setting up at those predetermined locations. And so we operate those 45 mobile clinics and 8 inside lanes currently in 14 states and then the District of Columbia. What's really exciting is that we're currently growing. Each year, our organization receives interest, and you know, our goal is to serve as many kids and to ensure that they have the glasses they need to be successful in school. And so I just wanted to call out that in 2025, we will be expanding it to 2 new regions and looking forward to growing our total impact over the 577,000 eye exams that we've already provided to date. Next slide. So Vision to Learn is a robust public-private partnership that's created to ensure that students have access to vision care services. And so we do this through leveraging both public dollars through Medicaid as well as private funding. So I wanted to just kind of demonstrate for you here, we have kind of 4 phases of our funding. Typically, when we launch a Vision to Learn program in a particular new region, or even a region within an existing state, philanthropy oftentimes is what is utilized to allow us to get started. It allows us to just really start boots on the ground and implement program service. But we are always looking to create a more sustainable funding stream to help support our program. And so that leads into Medicaid. So we have been very successful as an organization in terms of working with each state's Medicaid office to credential and contract, so that way we can access those state dollars for any eligible Medicaid service that would be provided on our mobile vision clinic. And so again, these are patients that are enrolled through Medicaid, have an eligible Medicaid benefit, and then our team is submitting claims to receive that reimbursement to help offset any of those costs to provide the service. But Medicaid does not cover the full cost of the eye exam, so we need to look for other gap fillers. Sometimes it is that private philanthropy that helps to support that and fill that gap. But in a few of our states, we are starting the process of enrolling with a CHIP HSI. CHIP is a Children's Health Insurance Program. The HSI stands for Health Services Initiative. And so through this line item within the CHIP and the state budget, we are able to access additional funding to gap fill and cover a portion of the costs that are incurred through the eye exam and provision of service. And then lastly, we have other sources of funding that do come in to play. There's sometimes we've been able to access congressionally directed funding, really working closely with state legislators to access those dollars. And then in some cases, in a few of our states, we've been able, in Delaware, Hawaii, we've been able to access state appropriations. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So the last few slides here, I really just wanted to highlight some of the work that we have been able to achieve here in the state of Iowa. That is where I began my journey with Vision to Learn. And before joining with Vision to Learn, I had the opportunity of working really closely as a state lead or a community lead with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. So our program here in Iowa launched in 2016, and it was in partnership with the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. And our local grade level reading effort was looking at how health barriers were impacting kiddos within the school setting. And so through that landscape and data kind of collection phase, we determined that about 2/3 of the students attending the Dubuque Community School District who were identified as needing an eye exam through their school-based vision screening were unable to go on and seek additional follow-up care, i.e. that eye exam and eyeglasses. So in 2016, we received private funding through local philanthropy. We launched a program here in Northeast Iowa in Dubuque and Jackson County, which you can see on the map. And we continue the conversation. We continue to work with other state partners and working as well with other vision care providers like Prevent Blindness Iowa, Iowa Kids Site, and Delta Dental of Iowa Foundation. And we have since launched program operations across 17 counties within the state. We have expanded from one clinic to a second clinic. And we were able to achieve that through a capacity building grant through our partnership with the Delta Dental of Iowa Foundation. And we are looking forward to bringing on 2 new counties this next school year in Pottawatomie and Marion County. All in all, we've helped over 19,500 students in the state of Iowa and provided more than 16,000 pairs of eyeglasses. So this slide here, it looks fairly simplistic, but this is actually one of the most important slides that I want to cover today. Our partnerships really are essential in terms of helping us to be successful and provide this level of service and care to students and ensure that our young people have access to vision care services. In Iowa, there's approximately 20,000 students across our state who need glasses and do not have them. So working with community partners to raise awareness around vision health, identify where there might be some strategies that we can tap into where we are either providing the level of service that is needed to ensure that kiddos have that eye exam and eyeglasses, or perhaps we're just starting the conversation and allowing that local community to work with existing partners that might be able to fill that gap and that need. We work really closely with our school nurses, administrators to implement and carry out this service. I briefly mentioned we partner with other vision care organizations like Prevent Blindness Iowa, who is actually one of our screening partners and assists with some of the vision screenings in the Des Moines Public Schools. And then lastly, you hear, the philanthropic support. And so with that, I wanted to just kind of kick us off then into our partner spotlight. In 2017, so this would be a year after our program operation began in Iowa with Vision to Learn, we had started a conversation with the United Way, who has a very robust grade level reading effort. And Cheryl and Kate are going to be able to expand on this. And they were looking at strategies to really kind of crack the nut on the health piece. And through this partnership, we started to talk about vision. And so we started with a small pilot project. We had 5 elementary schools where we launched this program. The United Way started with funding support to bring this program to the Des Moines Public Schools. And since then, our partnership has grown. A couple of these photos here, I want to just kind of touch on. So they really kind of shifted from not just a philanthropic partner, but really a catalyst connecting us to community organizations, other like-minded health organizations or educational organizations that might have an interest in a glasses intervention. And they've also really assisted with advocacy at the state level when we've had some challenges around screenings across our schools within the state of Iowa. And so here in the photographs, you can see some of the partners that the United Way has brought along and introduced to Vision to Learn. We've worked really closely with their labor union partners, as well as with some of their larger financial partners. So in the right-hand corner, we have Athene. So it's been a very successful partnership and one that we're really grateful that we can continue. We've expanded now to serve K through 8 within the Des Moines Public Schools. And then we have a variety of community organizations throughout the summer months that we're able to serve through this partnership. So with that, here is my contact information. The QR code takes you to our website for additional information. You can feel free to reach out to me here on the email that's listed below, and I can answer any additional questions. I did see quite a few things pop up in the chat, so I'll do my best to catch up. So with that, I would love to introduce Cheryl Warner and Kate Bennett, my partners at the United Way, and let them take a little bit of a deeper dive into our partnership and more.
Thanks, Corinne. Malai, did you want Corinne to go ahead and answer that one particular question or just go through the chat?
I'll have her go through the chat since we're pressed for time. So Kate and Cheryl, you can go ahead and cover your pieces. And Corinne, just take a look. There's a couple of things for you in the chat waiting.
Okay, well, thank you. As was mentioned, I'm Kate Bennett. I am the Community Impact and Integration Officer at United Way of Central Iowa. Vision to Learn has been really a life-changing program for us. And I know one of the questions in the chat was, how did you get philanthropy involved? And I think Corinne can speak to this better than myself, but I think our president met Corinne and heard, our president at the time met Corinne and heard her speak and was pretty much sold on the spot that this was something that we should be involved in. So seeing is believing. And as Corinne mentioned, like that first 5 schools we piloted, I mean, it was amazing. So Vision to Learn has changed the lives and learning trajectory of 8,256 children since our partnership launched in the spring of 2017. It's expanded the reach and visibility of our grade level reading work, and it has engendered a tremendous amount of community support and goodwill. So we partnered with Vision to Learn in 2017, as was mentioned. You can go, yeah, thanks. Back to the Vision to Learn slide. With DMPS, students receive a vision correction, get 2 free pairs of glasses. So 1 to keep at school and 1 to keep at home. And Vision to Learn is uniquely positioned to significantly help children in underserved communities because of the mobile clinic. And we have a mobile dental clinic in Central Iowa that we've been using for decades. So that has been going to schools. So having a mobile vision clinic was not that different for that in terms of the way our children were accustomed to being served. So our partnership with Vision to Learn help Central Iowa kids not only see better, but improve their performance. We've had several point-in-time studies within Des Moines Public Schools that have showed that receiving glasses and the connection to Vision to Learn has decreased behavior referrals, as well as increased academic partnership or academic progress. So by partnering with school districts and community organizations, Vision to Learn creates a coordinated system that identifies children needing vision care and ensures they receive the necessary services. So with that, I will let Cheryl speak about our next program, which is our parenting program, but I'm happy to collaborate with Corinne on answering questions in the chat about Vision to Learn.
And our first partnership that we'd like to highlight is with our Young Women's Resource Center, and their parenting and life skills program aligns very, very closely with our early childhood success strategy, in which we aim to increase access to and availability of prevention, early identification, and early intervention for children birth to age 5 to promote healthy physical and mental development. And to promote this through this program, participants, these teen parents, are taught early milestones, how to schedule well baby checkups, and the importance of reading and playing. They also are taught the Circle of Security curriculum. It is an evidence-based intervention that is designed to strengthen their ability to both observe and improve their caregiver skills. So participants learn about early childhood development, how to secure attachments, and the importance of that parent-child connection. Young Women's Resource Center is one of the only organizations in Central Iowa that promotes and provides parent education specifically designed for teenage mothers. And with that, Kate will talk about our partnership with Oak Ridge.
So definitely we couldn't have a grade level reading without highlighting Oak Ridge, which I think we have a couple people from Oak Ridge on the call. Oak Academy, we're going to be talking specifically about, provides early education and preschool for infants and young children 6 weeks to pre-K. It is NACE accredited, and also a level 5 on the IQ 4K. So the highest level of accolades and level of quality that can be awarded to a center, Oak Academy has. So they use research-based curricula and assessments to guide its work. They have on-site therapy and interventions, as well as utilizing volunteers tremendously. We do full service of screenings available for all the children. So we're making sure we're looking developmentally at all the children and getting them the services that they need. And that's all with 80% of the children being free and reduced lunch or eligible for childcare assistance. I think since we're pressed for time, I'll go ahead and let Cheryl talk about Bright by Text, because this Bright by Text is a service that's available for everyone. So we want to make sure that we spend time learning about Bright by Text.
Thanks, Kate. And this is one of our initiatives that you can see is we teamed up with Bright by Text, and which is a national parent and caregiver texting program. It puts expert tips and educational games and child development information directly into the hands of parents and caregivers, aimed at children prenatal through age 8. Each message includes a link to a landing page that you will find more details, short videos, and related resources. And as you can see, their core content is critical during this very, very important stage of children's lives. And what we want you to know, some of the national experts, PBS, Vroom, Sesame Street, Count the Kicks, and the United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention. It is also both culturally sensitive and developmentally appropriate, and it's based upon a child's birth date. And Bright by Text really helps parents and caregivers make the most out of their time with their kids. They are sent helpful, bite-sized bits of information and caregiver nudges, all aimed at strengthening families and improving whole child outcomes. It illustrates fun and easy activities, positive parenting tips and resources, and also that video content, which you see here includes that optional content in case they want to learn more, and use more of the content. And we don't want to go without highlighting the community message opportunity through Bright by Text, which is very critical because it's based upon a family's zip code. And so we are able to share all those kinds of information with them. And if you notice, is that those community messages, how do they get signed up? By texting Iowa for Kids to that number. And it's very specifically targeted audiences and drives community engagement. And what's very important about this is that it also increases information and awareness of community resources. How many do they get a week? No more than 2 to 4 messages a week to connect with our families. Does it work for everyone? Yes. We also make sure that our community partners, currently it is available in both English and Spanish and being developed in more languages. How do our community partners work with caregivers and parents in our refugee and other families speaking other languages? And that's through our community partners. So they work very closely to make sure that this information is accessible. And we're going to close our section with Kate. She's going to talk about another one of our initiatives called Book Buddy.
Thank you. Book Buddy is a one-on-one volunteer reading mentor program that we developed at United Way in cooperation with Des Moines Public Schools. It is, just as I said, basically a reading buddy program, but the books are specifically curated to develop skills that children need for pre-literacy. So it's looking at the Des Moines Public Schools kindergarten readiness assessment and directly utilizing books that are addressing those skills. So the students read the book with a volunteer. You can see photos of what that looks like. We're able to use it as a great volunteer recruitment. We have, companies that will have their volunteers share. So no one is going more than twice a month. It's a 30-minute opportunity. And then at the end of the day, end of the week, the students get to take the books home. So they're not only developing their reading skills in the center, they're developing their in-home library, which hopefully gets shared with their siblings and beyond themselves. So we could provide more information about Book Buddy as needed, but I want to be respectful of time and turn it back over to Malai.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl and Kate. Before I press on with Catherine, I do have Bridget from Bright by Text who's here with us. Bridget, can you just say maybe a minute or two, if you can, just about Bright by Text? And then we'll go right into Catherine sharing about the big lift.
Sure thing. Thanks so much for having me. Cheryl, first of all, I'm so impressed at how well you described Bright by Text, and we're so thrilled to have been working with your organization as steadfast partner for many years. So thank you for that ringing endorsement. That was lovely. Couple of things just kind of piggybacking on what we've learned today through some of the other presentations as well. So Bright by Text, we really operate on the mission that it's all children's birthright to thrive. We've chosen the parent support lane to do that, as Cheryl so eloquently explained. We focus on building parents' confidence, competence, and connections. We have developed our library of content with 50+ expert organizations over time, and all of that automatically goes to your parents once they enroll. And then if you do become a community partner with us, you would have access to use our system to send out your own local resources based on geography. Couple things I wanted to pinpoint is we do a lot with speech and language development, as that was a great presentation we heard earlier. We start at the prenatal stage, already talking about reading to your baby, talking to your baby, even at the pregnancy stage. We currently support with our age-based content from pregnancy. We just expanded our ages through age 10. So we used to only go through age 8, but we are now going through age 10. However, parents can still stay subscribed and get those community messages from local partners up until their child turns 19. So there's a lot going on there, but I did want to mention early literacy is a big piece, speech and language development, school readiness, and everything is available in English and Spanish. We are looking to do some language expansion, but that probably won't be ready very quickly. A refugee question, there might be a language barrier there. It just depends. But definitely right now we are available in English and Spanish. Lastly, I wanted to mention that 62% of our subscribers currently live in low-income zip codes. And wanted to give you guys a heads up that we just reached 300,000 parents that receive our services. And we just hit that benchmark last week. So we're looking
fantastic.
To help even more.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bridget. All right, so closing out our Coast to Coast tour is Catherine Sullivan from San Mateo County. And I did have the great joy of meeting Catherine in person earlier this year when we hosted an in-person meeting in Oakland. And she'll share a story, hopefully, about something that she's going to present. There was a seed that was planted in that face-to-face meeting. She has extensive experience in the public sector and currently uses her wealth of knowledge to lead the collaborative efforts in San Mateo County. So go ahead, Catherine, lead us away. Also, I got the notice from Sierra that we'll be closing the rooms in around 11 minutes or so. And so go ahead and take your time with your sharing, and we will answer any questions in the chat. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Malai. It's great to be with all of you today. I appreciate the opportunity to connect and learn about the important work that is being done coast to coast to really support our earliest learners on their path to reading proficiently. Today, I'm going to share some of the ways the Big Lift supports our early learners and their families get ready for day one. And a lot of the strategies that I'm going to talk about are similar to the other strategies that have been shared. So I'll be mindful of the time as we go through these. Yeah. So I'd like to give a little overview of the Big Lift, talk about our Inspiring Summers program, which is led by our partners at the San Mateo County Library, how we connect families to community resources over the summer. And then, as Malai mentioned, a really exciting resource that we've just released, which is our Let's Read San Mateo County website. And that is made possible through a partnership with the Oakland Literacy Coalition, which really came about during a convening that Malai hosted back in, I believe that was in February. Yeah, great. So the Big Lift is a collective impact effort that was launched in 2016 by the County of San Mateo, the San Mateo County Office of Education, and the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. And it was launched in response to the alarming opportunity and achievement gaps here in San Mateo County. This initiative is funded by the county's Measure K fund, as well as philanthropic contributions. And don't have a lot of time today to talk about Measure K, but happy to answer questions about that in the chat or follow up with folks over email if you're curious about this public funding stream. For context, for those of you who may not be familiar with San Mateo County, we're located in Northern California, and the county spans 455 square miles, bordering San Francisco and Silicon Valley. Our county is a beautiful place to live and to learn. It's the home to over 750,000 residents. With that being said, it's really important to note that San Mateo County is in the top 1% of wealth nationwide. So we have quite a diverse community, and our county as a whole is in that top 1% of wealth. Yet only 57% of our community's students who are enrolled in public school are reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. And when we look at that data for students who qualify for free or reduced price meals here, that percentage of students who are reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade drops to 27%. And since our inception, the Big Lift has really been dedicated to fostering collaboration and unifying stakeholders who share a common commitment to the goal of advancing 3rd grade literacy. In 2023, following a comprehensive strategic planning process, San Mateo County and the Big Lift renewed its commitment to ensuring 3rd grade reading proficiency through the implementation of evidence-based strategies, many which have been discussed by my previous colleagues who are sharing. But in this next phase of the Big Lift, we're really sharpening our focus on early literacy through instructional quality aligned with the science of reading, and that's in our preschool through 3rd grade classrooms. Family engagement, really focused on family engagement to support literacy and engage with the K-12 system, and our Inspiring Summers program, which I'll talk a little bit more about. The Big Lift partners with and provides funding to 8 school districts here in San Mateo County. And those 8 school districts have 3rd grade reading proficiency rates below the county average. And we also partner with 4 preschool networks and provide funding to the San Mateo County Office of Education and the San Mateo County Libraries to really implement these strategies. Right, so our Inspiring Summers program is in its 9th year of implementation, and the program is led by our partners at the San Mateo County Libraries. I believe my colleague from the library, Kayla Paradis, is on the call today. And the Inspiring Summer program is implemented in 6 of our Big Lift school districts. It's a full-day program that serves rising kinder through rising 3rd grade students. And there's really an emphasis on early literacy, STEAM activities. There are weekly field trips. And again, we really focus on school connectedness and family engagement. The Inspiring Summers program is free for all of the participating students, and priority enrollment is given to rising kinder students with no formal preschool or early childhood education experience, and those who live in low-income households. And for that criteria, we use the Department of Housing and Urban Development income guidelines. The school districts that we partner with hire the academic teachers to lead the morning literacy curriculum, and the library hires learning facilitators, and there are 2 in each classroom to support academic instruction during the morning, and also to lead the STEAM activities and mindfulness activities in the afternoon. This is a little bit more of an overview of our program design. The program is really, each partnering district must operate for a minimum of 18 days. And we've got the daily literacy activities as well as STEAM and mindfulness activities and weekly field trips and family engagement events. And I'm going to put in the chat, since we're short on time, let's see if I can paste that there. A video for you to watch later. I think, you know, as one of our first colleagues presented, it's great to see the program in action. So that YouTube video will take you to a great video about the Inspiring Summers program, and you can hear from educators, students, and families themselves. Program impact, who we serve, 39% of the students who enroll in the Inspiring Summers program over the past 3 years are designated as English language learners. 78% of participating students are included in the California Department of Education's unduplicated count. Here in California, that unduplicated count are students who qualify for free or reduced price meal, English language learners, engaged in the foster care system, or experiencing homelessness. And on average, we've seen 1.3 months of literacy gains over this 4-week program, and 90% of surveyed families state that their child has gained confidence over the program. Oh no, it looks like we're being ushered back. Malai, do you want me to drop a link about the website?
Yeah, please do. Go ahead and drop that link, because the website is pretty important, and I'll be sure to highlight that in the follow-up. I apologize we weren't able to get to that. We are going to close breakout rooms. I'll mention that website when we do the takeaways.
Okay, great. So I'll put, I'm just grabbing that now. And again, this is really our Let's Read San Mateo County website. Check it out. A lot of great resources for families there. It's translated into Spanish, Simplified, Chinese, and Tagalog, which are our most common languages here in San Mateo County. And that really made possible through a partnership with the Oakland Literacy Coalition that came out of a...
Hi, everyone. I gotta get resituated. It's such a shock to come from breakout room to the big room. So thanks, everybody. I hope your conversations went well. We actually ran out of time. And so my colleague, Catherine, got cut off when she was sharing more information about a website. So I'm going to be sure in my takeaway to talk about that website. So at this moment, we've got about roughly under 10 minutes to just do high-level takeaways from each of the rooms. So I'm going to pitch it to Ron, and then Cecilia will share, and then I'll share what we discussed in room 3, and then we'll close us out. So go ahead, Ron, if you can, please.
Well, thank you, Malai. I think we had a fantastic conversation, and I would encourage everyone to take a look at the recording if you weren't able to join us on high-dosage tutoring. We heard about mission acceleration in Mississippi. We heard about the tutoring collaborative that's being hosted by Turn the Page STL, or Turn the Page St. Louis. I think there were a lot of takeaways. There was a discussion about how we fund high dosage tutoring, how we build partnerships with districts, with nonprofits. We heard about some of the critical choices that folks make about how to structure high dosage tutoring, when, where, how that happens, how to make sure that we're recruiting, retaining, training those folks who can serve as tutors, and making sure that programs are well connected and well aligned to one another. And I thought just a really good and engaging conversation about a collaborative approach that looks at all of the assets and resources in a particular community, or in the case of Mississippi, across an entire state, how you build initiatives that really make sure that the kids who need high dosage tutoring the most get it, and that is a central part of efforts to not just focus on the gaps, but also actually work on closing the gaps. And we saw some good early evidence and data that these strategies are working. And so I thought it was a very encouraging and hopeful conversation.
Great, thank you, Ron. Cecilia, can you summarize room 2, please? Thank you.
Yes, we heard some incredible strategies for improving attendance from both at the systems level, how you incorporate family voice, as well as include many other community partners. We also heard how you create a whole school approach that at its heart is so supportive of families and really takes into account what challenges families are facing, as well as building on their strengths. So the Padlet has many of the strategies listed out. And then we really, I think, as a group, wrestled with the changing needs for communicating the importance about attendance. And that, I think, is an unfinished story, although there were some great insights about understanding literacy level, understanding the modes that people communicate best in or not, right? And some anticipation about what's going to come from the Ad Council in the fall with their new messaging and tested messaging on attendance. So those are the pieces we covered, and we ended with that challenge to reduce chronic absence 50% in the next 5 years or more. Khushbu went for it and exceeded the 50% mark in her community.
Great, thank you. The feeling that I get is that we have a lot of things to build off of from room 1 and from room 2, which I'm hopeful that we can start building future conversations with our Crucible of Practice series with those things, those seeds and nuggets of wisdom that we learned in room 1 and in room 2. You see the engagement poll. Please do take that for us, and I'll go ahead and summarize what we discussed in room 3 while you're interacting with that poll. In room 3, we had such a wide variety of information that was shared. That's why we ran out of time. We had just so much rich content. We discussed a toolkit that can really support the development of language, particularly as children are preparing to go into school, but also reaches out throughout school age years. And so in the follow-up note, I will be sharing the toolkit, all of the notes from Get Georgia Reading, and how you can interact with that toolkit. We also discussed the importance of something that we kind of take for granted, which is these eyeglasses and the ability to be able to see and interact in school with Vision to Learn. Vision to Learn did a spotlight about how their program works. We had lots of great discussion in the chat regarding that. And then we did a partner spotlight about United Way of Central Iowa as they're implementing that program, Vision to Learn. United Way of Central Iowa also discussed programs that they do reaching out into partnerships with affordable housing, meeting families where they are, and those little pieces of things that United Way as both a funder and program partner does and implements on the ground. One of those things, Bright by Text, we had a representative from Bright by Text engaging a little bit about how they reach families through text messaging. This is another program that's available to everybody. If you could just look for those notes in the follow-up about how to have Bright by Text. Finally, we ended with Catherine Sullivan from San Mateo County sharing about their summer program, how they reach families through summer programming being implemented in the library, and then also a website with lots of resources, which we will be able to share their website, and you can interact with that website and get resources there. So lots of information covered, lots of tools and strategies covered team by team, community by community. And so I hope that everybody was able to pull something away. I'll be sure to summarize everything in that takeaway. Sierra, if you could please pull up the last remaining slides. We do have a couple of